All set? Okay, welcome to the Select Board meeting, April 16th, 2025. And before we start, I just want to thank Cade McDonald, Nathan Kent, Nate Reisheim, and Joe Doulette for bringing us this production. And if you would all join me in the pledge.
Being recorded.
We're being recorded. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this is a special meeting for us. Danielle Leonard reminded us of a couple things, and we wanted to honor a very, very special volunteer in town that everybody gets to enjoy his hard work. So tonight, we would like to honor John McLaughlin, and many of you know Mr. McLaughlin as the man who's always out there on the monument, working hard, and making us look like a bunch of slouches when he's just making it look so beautiful out there on the monument. He's been assisting the town for the last 13 years, is primarily responsible for all of the plantings on the monument, as well as several traffic circles throughout town. He was responsible for the decorative lighting at the front of Town Hall. He's responsible for the redesign of the World War II memorial at the end of the monument. He's assisted both the Senior Center, Andrews Chapel Committee with plantings and wreath hangings. There's actually a lot more that John does for the town, but we have a long meeting tonight, and we know he's getting a little embarrassed listening to this. So John, if you could please come on down, we'd like to reward you with this beautiful citation. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That bag is for him as well.
Oh, geez, hold on, John. You're not just any volunteer.
Oh, wait, there's more.
And there's more.
More. Behind door number 3.
Like Oprah.
Beautiful.
So John is a VIP volunteer, and we have something a little special for you.
Thank
All
you.
right?
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
And the bag is yours too, John.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Thank you, Dan.
Got it? All right. Oh, that's a nice bag, John.
It's a cooler bag, I believe.
It's a cooler bag? Great, thank you, John. Okay. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. Please remember, public comment is 3 minutes. Katie, can you
I can sure.
take care of the 3 minutes? And please just give your name and your address.
Hello, Michael Contreras, Precinct 1, Town Member, 46 Buena Vista. I just had questions about the residential parking signs that came up on Burpee Road, since I live right around the corner on Buena Vista. I know that last meeting it wasn't really voted on. We were going to get more information around it, so just kind of surprised to see the signs, since I know a lot of people were kind of confused. Like, is it active? Do I need to get a pass? Also, kind of looking at the agenda today, it looks like it's going to be potentially for 24-hour parking, and the signs say from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., so kind of seems like we're going to have to replace the signs at some point. So just kind of wanted to express the concern there, since I don't know if it was for the construction people or anything like that, since that just means that they'll come around on Buena Vista, which already has very sharp blind corners where people almost hit each other constantly on Roy. So just concerned about the traffic and that change that hasn't been really communicated very well.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. Is there anyone else for resident comment? No hands are raised. Oh, Mr. Dulett.
Hello, Joe Dulett, Precinct 3. I'm just wanting to let people know that the Blue Big Band, which is Swampscott's community jazz orchestra, which is a program of the Senior Center, is having its spring performance on May 8th at 7:15 at Swampscott High School. It's the same day as the Heritage Festival. So go to the Heritage Festival and then come over to the high school for a beautiful concert of Duke Ellington's work, directed by Timo Shanko, who is, I think, one of Swampscott's hidden treasures. Invite you all. It's free for youth and seniors and $10 for everyone else. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dulett. And not seeing any other hands, we will move to the town administrator's report.
Would it be okay if I deferred that to the end? I brought my notes here. I'll put them down somewhere on this desk, and I can't find them.
I think I have Gino's notes by mistake.
I brought a package in today.
Up on Facebook, I see her.
Yeah, right.
Which are-
Hold on a second here, let's just have a little,
Let's take a
There were a
look.
bunch of
what do
notes.
they look like, Gino? Like this?
That's it.
Oh, we found it.
And these, Joe?
You just leaving all your stuff here?
Yeah,
Oh,
lucky.
now they're gonna be writing letters about me for stealing. Yeah.
No, the reason I had to do it is I increased the fonts.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we'll make it brief. You'll always all have a full report in your packets. I'm just going to address some of the, what I don't want to say it's the most important stuff, but some of the stuff that I think is important to address tonight anyways. Out of the town administrator, we held the initial ground rules meetings to begin negotiations with both the police department and the library this week. Both meetings went smoothly, basically just to discuss the ground rules. Met with Max to discuss the cell tower leases, something I was always interested in. The one on the cell towers on the water tower are set to expire next year. We're looking to sign a one-year extension with them right now. We think it's definitely going to benefit us because rates are going down now that there's so many opportunities. The one behind the police station has 10 more years, so we're stuck with that for another 10 years. I met with Nahat Town Administrator Tony Barletta to discuss possible regionalization opportunities. That meeting went well. Might be able to discuss a little bit more of that a little later. Moving on to the DPW, very busy. Most of you have seen street sweeping began last week and will be completed by April 24th. The schedule has been posted on the DPW website. The annual paving project began last week. Roadway milling will continue to the middle of next week. All told, the town will be paving 27 roadways this year. And Great Eastern Sons will be wrapping up the Marshall Street outfall sewer rehabilitation project by the end of the month, which is, we're getting very good results with testing some of the manholes there, so I couldn't be happier. I think there's somebody else might be happy in the audience there, because if we're ever able to open up Fisherman's Beach, it's going to be a win for the town, and I'm very optimistic. And Great Eastern Sun also has a second contract with the town of Swampscott to replace the water main on Palmer Ave and to reline the water main on Atlantic Ave. You see the bypass piping's been laid down on both roadways. Palmer Ave is going to be start tomorrow, the work there. The whole project will probably be completed in 2 months. And then finally, DPW awarded a landscape contract to D'Amato's Landscaping. It's a 3-year contract with D'Amato's. The reason I bring this up tonight is my tenure here, and probably for the past 25 years, Leahy Landscaping has done the cutting of the grass in Swampscott. It's done a great job. I'd like to acknowledge Matt, Swampscott resident, over the years' work, but it was very competitive this year. Most of the years when we put out a 3-year contract, he's been the only bidder. We had 7 competitive bids this time around, so I'm looking forward to working with the new contractor. All right. Community development. Pine Street updates are attached. There's somewhere here. We can talk about those. We'll be meeting with Earth Day events scheduled for Saturday. Clerk's office is continuing work on the annual report. Ordered more election equipment, completing the capital project. Fire department is working on comprehensive set of policies and standard operating procedures, and they were also awarded a $4,427 grant, for fire service firefighting safety equipment. Human Resources is Virtually attended the TA Search Committee's meeting where they interviewed 2 possible consultants. I believe they might be voting on that tonight. Organized and attended Ready Sets Community Jam session at the library. Attendees were engaged and stayed roughly 2 hours. Feedback is positive. Library, this is interesting, continued discussions and revisions to the library entrance. And more importantly, the renovation project is now landed on their webpage. So we're happy with that. Facilities, continuing the town hall roof replacement. I believe they're just about done with that project, other than installing the railings. National Grid completed their inspection of the SHS Auditorium lighting project. And Matt continues to review the solar project planning. Recreation, most important, well, I shouldn't say the most important, but the most exciting thing, maybe in my opinion, is the planning of the new Derby Day event on May 3rd, 4 to 7. There will be food trucks and bear events, and I'm looking forward to a good turnout. And Danielle's also planning a public safety day on June 1st with Officer Rain and SRO Officer Wilson. That's it.
All right, any questions?
I have a question about Pine Street, since we
Mhm.
sort of said it was attached, but I think it's probably important to call out some of the things that were on the attachment, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So the 40B was received by the town on April 2nd, right?
A second, yep.
And, I'm sorry, yeah, April 2nd. The comment period ends May 2nd.
Yep.
So I think Marzi sent that around to the select board for comments. And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this process is a friendly 40B, so it's a town-owned parcel. And so it'll follow a similar process as Michon followed, right? But I think from what this update says, you're in the works with maybe a neighborhood meeting.
Yes.
So I don't think we did that with Michon, so that's great that we're sort of taking the reins and doing that. I know obviously this is a topic amongst, that's very much in the public eye right now, so I think a neighborhood meeting is important. And then also, I wanted to make sure that we reiterated that town staff is working to answer the letter that we received, the 40B, the comments to the 40B.
Right.
Yep, and
Yep.
if we have any comments, we should send them to Marzi.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
I'm looking at everybody's, does anybody have that miscellaneous part on the bottom of theirs?
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure.
I don't.
That's why I looked over at you.
Oh, all
I
right.
just wanted to make sure everybody else had seen that.
Okay.
So just to that effect, so with the project eligibility letter that's received, comment period ending 5/2, is there time for us to have a public meeting to have that discussion publicly about Pine Street? Are we planning to have a meeting, or can we ask for additional time so we can, so this can be included in a public meeting? That's how this process, I believe, has worked previously.
I don't know if the process, I think this is a little bit different process. My understanding is that with this, similar to the Michon, the public, we're not even required to have a public meeting, and they didn't for Michon, but we are, my understanding is Marzi is scheduling one for this one, and then put together a letter for the funding. And then my understanding is that there's another time where we have to have a bigger process around the schematic drawings. That's my understanding. I don't know.
I do believe that when the Westcott when the Westcott issued their project eligibility letter, that did
Yeah.
come in front of the select board.
Those are
It
two
was a-
different, yeah, those are
It
two
was a-
different
It
projects.
was a friendly 40B as well. It wasn't
Not-
a town-owned property. but
Right.
Right.
It was,
Right.
Right.
it was friendly.
Right. Well, I know that she's scheduling a public meeting.
Right, but I think what you just said, Mary Ellen, I mean, this says that schematic design plans can be submitted to who on 5/1, doesn't say.
Yeah,
So
before
to
the,
us,
before the comment period ends.
Before the comment period, but one day before the comment period ends. And does the neighborhood meeting need to happen before or after the schematic design? I mean, I think.
I don't
got
know if the schematic design is 5-1. I don't think the schematic is 5-1. I'm not, this is the first time I'm seeing this. My understanding, schematic comes much later.
I would think so. But what I would suggest is Marzi's at another meeting right now. She said she would log on as soon as she finishes up with that meeting to answer any of these questions.
So we could put this at the end.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right.
I did have something else, Gino.
Sure.
So, thanks.
No.
So for the last 7 months, I've been trying to address some serious allegations and concerns that I have regarding the inappropriate release of town employee personnel information. I'm speaking about this publicly tonight after trying to address these concerns privately. There are 2 instances that I know of where confidential employee information was released. Last fall, came to my attention that confidential personnel information was inappropriately shared. An internal investigation was subsequently initiated by the town administrator to examine this breach. And despite the investigation being completed, the findings of that investigation have been repressed by Chair Mary Ellen Fletcher. I've reached out numerous times to Chair Fletcher to request an executive session to discuss the findings of the investigation, and each time that request has been denied. In addition, prior to the investigation's conclusion, Chair Fletcher wrote an email to Town Council on October 30th, which stated, "We need to shut down the investigation." Now, the question I must ask is, why is a member of the Select Board interfering with an internal investigation? In a separate instance last year, confidential employee information was once again released. And Gino, on March 5th of this year, 2025, you confirmed to me by email that this confidential information was, in fact, inappropriately released. In a subsequent conversation on April 11th, last Friday, you indicated that Chair Fletcher directed you to retract that statement that you made in email to the board on March 5th. It should be of serious concern to everyone that a member of this board, namely Chair Fletcher, is attempting to prevent the truth from being understood and ensuring that whomever is responsible for the breaches is held to account. The town of Swampscott currently has approximately 500 employees that are entitled to their personal information being kept confidential. There's potential for massive liability to the town and ultimately to Swampscott residents. For example, are Swampscott residents aware that we are paying the former town administrator a $275,000 settlement? You heard me correctly, $275,000
Can I ask a
of
point
taxpayer
order?
money.
Point of order.
No.
Point of order.
No.
Yep.
This
point
is
of
a
order.
this is a public
Point of
settlement,
order.
yet the chair
Point
has
of
not
order.
elected
Point
to
of
inform
order.
residents during a very
You
difficult budget
are
process.
out of line,
No, I'm not.
Mr. Grishman.
No, I
Nope.
You are,
No.
just
just
have a-
has one question.
I just
Go
have a
ahead.
question. If it relates to the town administrator's report, then it's timely, but if it's not, it should be done during your select board time.
As Gino, as the interim town administrator, you need to make sure that we're protecting our town employees, and tonight I'm calling for you to commence an outside independent investigation into the multiple occasions where confidential employee personnel.
Mr.
information
Grishman, you are
was
so
released.
out of line. You are
We
so
need
out
to
of line.
find out what happened, who was responsible, and ensure that this doesn't happen again. We owe that to
You're
all of our
out of line, Mr.
employees and to
Grishman.
all of our taxpayers of Swampscott.
You are completely out of line.
Mary
trying
Ellen,
to
you're not
pull-
gonna, Mary Ellen, you're not gonna
You are
silence me like you
using a
attempted,
political
to
platform
silence
to try
the
to-
investigation, the
Mr.
internal
Grishman, you are
investigation.
out of line. You are out of line.
I
Mr.
have all the
Grishman.
receipts, Mary Ellen.
That's great. You are so out of line.
Ms. Phelan,
Mr.
Ms. Phelan, would you like to read this email? Here, read the email, please.
I just feel like this is totally inappropriate.
Do you-
I'm not reading anything
You're
else.
totally inappropriate, Mr. Grishman. Please sit down.
I mean, if you have something you'd like to talk to us about, we can talk about it at select board time. We're talking about the town administrator's report.
Yeah.
I'm not saying whatever you're saying doesn't have the validity you're saying it does. I have no idea. You're just presenting it right now for all of us for shock value. Let's focus on the business we have on the agenda. We'll get to this at select board time.
This is the business of the town. This is absolutely
This
the
is
business of the
political
town.
theater. That's all you're doing here, David. You're trying to humiliate people. You're trying to hurt employees in the town. These are all about employees.
Well, I mean, I
Oh,
guess
here we go.
the one thing that I heard there that seems particularly relevant is, and I couldn't quite hear it with the overtalk, but there was something in there about that Mary Ellen asked Gino to not do something. So that seems like the piece that's particularly relevant to the town administrator's report to me.
So where is it in the did I ask you not to do something in this administrative report?
No.
Thank you.
I'm going to pipe in here because I do not want to see another town employee put on the spot, and that's Gino Cresta. And I think this line of questioning to him is inappropriate, and while, again, David, you very well could have some valid points, and this is definitely something we should address and speak to in a professional, appropriate, human resources fashion, right? Because this is an HR issue to me. I've got my HR hat on. This is concerning. But I personally don't think it's fair to put Gino on the spot right now. I'm going to be, and if you did say something, or you're a witness and you'll be investigated, but I do think an investigation is in order for sure to get this straightened out. I don't want to see any undue pressure put on you, period. From anybody, from any of us, from anybody out there, anybody, right? And there is a lot of lines that we have to make sure that are not blurred, crossed, and whatever else. So while I agree that this is not the forum for it, it definitely is concerning and it should be investigated, and we will. I'm telling you right now, I will, because we need to get this cleared up. Whatever the truth is needs to come out, and it will. But I think that it has to be done professionally through human resources or whoever, or outside, whatever. But I just don't want to see anybody put on the spot here
We're not going to litigate
and
it
ask.
tonight.
So-
so-
no,
Right,
no.
we're not going to, right, but
And tonight, I'm just asking the call for a commencement of an outside independent investigation into the multiple occasions where confidential employee personnel information was released. So if we can get to the bottom of that sooner rather than later, that would be greatly appreciated.
Do you have anything else on your, oh, you're finished with does anybody have any more questions on the town administrator's report?
I had questions about stuff that is not nearly as riveting or exciting. This morning, I was on a walk, and I happened to see trash being collected, and it was just blowing everywhere. Recycling was blowing everywhere, down Reddington Street, down Humphrey Street, and I wanted to get a handle on what type of process is happening, because I mean, it was a mess, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm assuming it stayed there all day or blew all around, and I just wanted to get an idea. Does DPW follow up with the trash trucks? Like, how does that work on a day like this?
Now, typically, what I would say the Board of Health would send the residents a letter saying you're supposed to cover your trash.
It was recycling, so it
Recycling.
was recycling that was just going
It's-
everywhere.
right.
And I don't
Right.
know if it was partly because they weren't emptying it completely and it was blowing, I don't know.
I think
but
it's starting to blow.
It
I went
just
down
was
there
really
right after.
messy.
I drove down there after, and we'll get that picked. Whatever remains tomorrow morning will be picked up.
Right, it
But
just, yeah, I just
We gotta
wanted to
let the
figure out.
residents know, because obviously we're short-staffed. We can't be following around the trash truck, but
Okay, great. My second question is more in line budget-wise for you.
yep.
I know that, I think that was part of you and Amy have worked on it, I'm sure. I know you're working on it a lot.
Yep.
Will we see an update tonight about where we're at, what the next steps are, what you're working towards, especially with the schools, all of that? Will we hear that at some point tonight?
No, I don't think I'm ready for that. That was one of the things I wanted to discuss potentially tomorrow, where it
Okay,
impacts employees.
personnel, sure, okay, great. That's all I had.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So next, we're going to move to the presentation of the 2025 Swampscott Recreation Beach Sticker.
Great, we have a little slide we could bring up. Okay, so, okay. So we would like to give special thanks to Isabella Kennedy, who designed the beach sticker this year. She's a Swampscott resident, and she focuses on architecture and interior design for the last 20-plus years. Her work has spanned residential, commercial, and institutional projects, and we were very honored to have her develop the beach sticker for us this year. When Isabella is not working on projects, she can be found on beach walks with her family, paddleboarding, painting, drawing, or tackling her own DIY ideas, which is great. And I have seen her many times walking the beach with her kiddos, and we're very glad and honored to present her design this year, which is a nod to Hadley, which is so apropos as the Hadley comes out of commission as a school building this year, but remains a very big fixture in all of our lives. And I would like to present the first beach sticker this year to our designer as a special thanks for her contributions to the town.
Very nice.
It's really nice. Really great.
Okay, and then really quickly, beach stickers are now going to be available at Town Hall. They're coming out of the process that they came out of prior years, which were, you signed up for a sticker and it came through the mail. Beach stickers are going to be available starting tomorrow, but the hours are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Friday, 9 to 12. And you need your license and registration. You can pay by cash or check. And great news, the beach sticker process this year will be saving the town quite some money. It became a senior work-off program, and I believe Danielle said it was about $16,000 we are going to save this year by putting the beach stickers through this process rather than through the service that we normally use. So finding all the money everywhere.
So does that keep the price the same as it was?
The price is the same,
previous
yes.
year? So is that 25?
Danielle, $25, yes.
10 for seniors.
Great.
Yep.
Great. So we're very excited. Come get your beach sticker tomorrow. And thank you very much for your contribution.
Proud daughter over there.
I know. Proud daughter for her mom.
All right, so now we can move on to discussion and possible vote to appoint Richard Baldacci as the building commissioner. We had this on our agenda the last time.
Yep.
Madam Chair, is it possible that we push this back to talk about some fees first before we talk about this item? There's some issues, there's some ideas that I've floated, and Amy has some information that might be relevant to this conversation. Directly increasing some revenue in order to help pay for this building commissioner.
I don't have a problem with
Well, we
that.
could talk about it in the same context if you wish, but there's other items on here about fees, so
You want to jump to fees? You want to jump to fees and then we'll jump back up?
If that's okay.
So let's go to fees.
Doug, do you want to talk, or do
You want to go right to this one, or you want to talk about the other ones first?
Let's go to, so what line item is our regular fees?
9?
Yep, so let's just go right to 9 to vote on increasing town fees and permits. Amy?
So Mr. Thompson had emailed me asking if I could get some information on other communities' building fees and permits, which I believe you have in your packets. And one of the questions he posed was, it looks like we could potentially go up another $1 per thousand of project cost on the permit. And looking back at the past 12 months of permit data that we've had, if we did go up that $1 based off that past year, it would bring in $10,832, with the breakdown being $6,488 in commercial, $404 in residential, and $3,940 in electrical.
So this, just for the board's understanding, so I, as well as maybe the rest of you, had calls from people lobbying for this position one way or the other. And in the course of one of those conversations, one of the contractors noted to me that our fees actually have some room to go up to still be in line with some of our neighboring communities. Amy kindly pulled the information. I don't know, do we literally have all that information in here?
There's Nahant and.
Okay,
I think
great.
we do, yeah.
So, in some ways, we're pretty well in line with others, but I think it's Lynn that's much higher. So it could be $1 per thousand, it could be $2 per thousand. We could do nothing, but since it came out of the contractor community, and since this position really would be helping to facilitate that community, it seemed like it was a kind of very connected source of revenue that wouldn't be too terribly taxing on any one developer or even resident. But cumulatively, it would defray some of the costs. And you kind of alluded to regionalization things earlier, so I'm not sure if you want to talk about that in this context too, but this is just something to put on the table. It seems like this is a source where we could get $10,000 or $20,000, whether it's for the building commissioner or something else.
Right. Hopefully for something else, because I met with Tony Barletta and Rich yesterday over in the Nahant Town Hall, and Nahant has agreed to pick up $18,000 the salary for him to work 4 hours a week in Nahant.
Awesome.
We still got to iron out a few more details, but I think we got an agreement in place. He's willing to, Town of Nahant is willing to sign a 3-year contract, which would be in line with Rich's contract, to give us $18,000 1 year, $18,500 the second, $19,000.
So let's finish fees, and then we can jump up to him.
We do
So-
both?
Yeah.
Well, so so can we have, as far as fees, let's just do the
So for the recommendation.
whole thing on the recommendation on the fees. Can we have a motion to,
Well,
you want to discuss the rest of these
we
fees?
should just, yeah, we should probably
Let's
discuss.
just
the
get this get the fees done, okay?
Amy, are you going to speak on are there recommendations for how we increase these?
Yep, so the other recommendations we had was to increase the block party, which would directly affect Katie and her neighbors, from $25 to $50. And just for reference, in the past year, we had 16 of those. The other recommendations were to the town clerk's office, increasing the vital records, so the birth, death, and marriage certificates. We do $10. A lot of other communities are 15 and 20. So they didn't have a recommendation one way or another. They were in support of whatever the board wanted to do. They just felt we were far below what the Register of Vital Records sets as it, and our other communities. We had 745 of those in the last year. And then the other one was the late fee on dog licensing. We're very behind on every other community. Most of them are at 15. So that's what the town clerk was recommending for that. They also had asked that we adopt the rest of the RVRS. So if you get your birth, marriage, or death certificate and you need it expedited, you need it mailed internationally, there's set fees for that. They wanted those adopted as well.
Is there a summary of the proposed
Yeah, the
changes
ink.
anywhere in here?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, okay.
Overall, Amy, if we increased everything that's recommended, how much additional revenue does that, on an estimate? based
On an
what we did?
estimate, it was at least 20,000.
Okay.
And that's without the building permits, because that was a today thing.
Okay.
That was also inclusive of going up on the prams and kayaks from 25 to 50.
So everything you're recommending is consistent with other communities, right?
Yes.
So the question is, do we want to just make a not having like just one sheet of it super detailed? I'm just not sure how comfortable everybody is to make a motion to recommend the changes.
I think good hygiene, we should have one sheet, so we're clearly seeing what we're doing.
Yes.
Right, so,
There's no criticality to doing it today,
Right.
right?
right, so let's just put that, Diane, we'll put that on the next agenda. And Amy, if you just make one summary sheet,
Absolutely.
okay?
And, yeah, just for me, I'm comfortable with the changes to the,
Building
to
permits?
the building permits. I'm comfortable with the town clerk recommendations. I would keep the block party at $25 or make it free to encourage community engagement and involvement. That's the only change that I would have, for what it's worth.
I have one question on the
Very consistent party animal.
on the building. So you're recommending that we're only going up $1 per thousand, and that puts us in line with what communities?
That was more in line with Lynn's building permits, I believe.
Yeah,
No,
Lynn's 18.
Linfield,
Yeah, Lynn's-
Salem, Nahant, all in here.
So we would be between, I think the rest are similar to us. right now, but Lynn is higher. So we'd be going from 15 to 16 or 17, and Lynn's at 18, right?
Yeah.
What is-
Or 22.
Or-
for
yeah.
commercial.
For commercial.
Okay.
So we'd be
Yeah,
kind of
so
in
right now, we're
between.
at 15 per thousand on residential and 20 per thousand on commercial.
So is everybody good with just going up $1?
Yeah.
Or do you want $2? And this is for people who actually pull building permits?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if it's in line with the region, then we should do that. And then we've already talked about keeping a cadence of looking going forward and making sure that we're looking at these. 20,000 is a windfall for us this year because we need every penny. But if we're being consistent about increasing as the region increases, then, you know, well, I guess we won't have this windfall then going forward, but at least we'll be consistently seeing that come in.
Okay. So we'll,
I just had, I'm sorry.
What?
To be clear, we're not touching the mooring fees, right? Because we did increase those last year.
We are not touching them. The harbor master is recommending we revisit them next year.
Okay.
But due to the timing, the bills for this year had to go out, and there wasn't enough time to revisit them and get the bills out on time.
isn't there an issue with commercial and mooring fees, Danielle?
Not that I know of. What do you mean?
Well, you're the liaison to the Harbor and Water. I just
I
thought
know,
that there
but I
was
wanted to know what you're
something on the mooring fees for commercial. Okay.
I'm not aware of anything. There is an issue. I don't know what it is. They're meeting tonight.
Right.
You know, incidentally. I can never get there because they're always meeting on Wednesdays.
A coincidence.
I'll find out. There is something with commercial mooring.
Okay,
I don't know what the issue is.
so maybe we have to
Yeah.
pop that on there too.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so we'll just put that on for the next agenda. So we have one sheet, we could just approve one sheet. So why don't we jump back up to discussion and possible vote on Richard Baldacci, the building commissioner. I did have a conversation with Gino about this earlier, knowing that he had a conversation, was able to get Nahant on board to pick up the extra amount. The only thing that I just want to make sure that we start setting a precedent when we're working to regionalize, that the benefits are also, the benefits are also covered. For example, whatever the percentages that the other community is going to be picking up, they're also picking up the health insurance benefits. So for an example, with this case, Mr. Baldacci will be about 10%, between 10 and 16% work for Nahant. So I would like to approve, I would like to get a motion to approve this tonight with the understanding that Nahant will pick up that little bit extra on his health insurance. And one thing that's important about that is, as we go forward, then we have a precedence on how we start to regionalize and how we start to bring people in. And
How
what they
many
pick
hours
up.
is he working in Swampscott? How many hours would he be working?
36,
So we'd be working full-time,
full-time here, and then, yep,
and an additional
4
4,
hours.
okay.
Yeah,
So even if he
So if he's
Not
working a
Nahant.
full-time here, then why wouldn't we be paying 100%? I don't understand why.
Well, if he's also working over there, so if the job itself is X amount of hours, why wouldn't we be splitting the percentage hours that he's working over there?
Because our employees are 34.
34.
Well, I was going to say, once they
Hours,
hit
right?
20, we have to cover their benefits.
Okay, so how many
Anyway.
hours did I
Right,
say
so
he was
we're
working?
obligated to
30.
cover his
Did I say
100% of his.
Right, so we're obligated, but if
34,
we're
I
also,
meant to say 34.
So it's
30
30 hours plus 4 in Nahant?
no,
No, it's 34 here.
and
34
4
here and then 4 in Nahant.
So it's almost like it's not a,
So, for example,
he's doing 100, he's a 1.0 here. He's
Right.
not a .75 and a .25 there.
This is
Yeah.
just to get them the
Right?
additional funds.
It's just,
I see
it's,
both sides.
Yeah, I see both sides too. I understand what you're trying to get, Mary
Yeah,
Ellen, and I think there's
exactly.
value in it.
Yeah.
I think there is, but
But I think if we
It
get
depends on the breakdown of the
$18,000, then
FT.
we actually are, I think we're covered.
I think we're obligated.
I don't think we have to literally have them pay the portion of the health insurance, but you're saying conceptually.
Right.
they should
If
be
it was a
picking up
job
the
share, we
Total
would, yeah.
cost
Right.
right,
for the building commissioner, and we should be dividing the total cost, not just salary, but also
Right.
estimated
so
benefits.
for example, our facility manager is 40 hours a week.
Max is 34.
I thought max was 40 in the
How
contract.
could he be 40 when everybody else is 34?
Well, we know somebody else that's 40.
Well, Gino's 40.
I know, it's you. Yeah, I know.
My understanding
only
is,
one
my
I know.
understand, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding max is a 40 hour, because max is different than everyone else.
Max is
That's what
34
Sean
days.
had told me.
I mean, should
Is
we
it
really be
I mean,
calling out individuals?
Yeah.
No, it's not an,
No, we really
let's just say an
shouldn't even-
individual,
We
an
shouldn't be any
individual.
one-offs here.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
should all
Right.
be equal.
Right,
I think what I would like to
Hope we're
do
paying him for
is
40 hours then if he's,
make a motion to approve the appointment of Rich Baldacci as the building commissioner. As the deal has been negotiated today, have
yes.
Gino speak to Nahant about if there's wiggle room regarding the health insurance. But I still support hiring him if Nahant can't come forward with additional funds. Sorry to have my back to you.
No, that's okay.
what does it amount to?
not
What
ca-
amount would we even be looking for? In total?
2,600.
Additional from Nahant, because you're talking 38 hours, so that's 10.52%. And then it's about $26,000 for a family plan, so it's $2,600.
So that's the max it could be, right? Because if he's not taking a family plan, it wouldn't be
I'm pretty
26.
sure he's on a family plan.
Probably, okay. Okay.
I'll second that.
So we can venture down that road, and I get the point, and I think going forward, we should think about this more holistically.
Yeah.
But we're talking about 4 hours, not 20 and 20, or.
Yeah, it's not a job share, it's a little different.
Yeah,
They're
it's,
not-
so as we get more, hopefully, more into regionalization, and we talk about more job share positions, then we should be taking into account benefits, retirement, all that kind of stuff, the collective cost of that employee, not just salary.
see, that's what I think is important here, is to look at, I think we have to really start aggressively looking towards working with Nahant and seeing what we could do as far as sharing. And you have to remember, we're gonna be picking up health insurance, retirement,
Right.
you know,
But we're obligated to do that for full-time employees.
but we
Any
can't
full-time
even,
employee that we employ.
I hear what you're saying, but we can't, we wouldn't even be able to bring him on without having them together. So it's one job together. That's how I'm looking at it. I mean, you're in a budget looking, and I appreciate it, you're looking for every single dime and every dollar, and I just think that this makes things fair.
I also don't want to shoot myself in the foot and go back to Nahant and have them say,
No.
go take a walk,
gonna
I'm not
lose it
giving
over
you an extra $2,600.
No, I wouldn't, I'm not
already
recommending, I'm not
squeezed it.
recommending that.
I'm not
Right, so I
sure.
think that's
But I don't know the extent of your negotiations. I didn't know you were negotiating,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah, it's been going on for a week. It's a win-win for both. Tony will tell you the same thing.
Right.
But they were paying their part-time guy up until last week when he left, $14,000. So that's what he was started at. And I was able to squeeze the other 4 out of him.
Right. And what, so do you have a salary? I mean, is it a, have you negotiated everything? I don't want to
No.
let the cat, you haven't,
No.
okay. All right.
We
You say
have
no?
a tentative agreement, right, in place, for a
nothing
3-year contract, which
Okay.
would be start the 108 with a 2% increase for the next 2 years,
Okay.
and Nahant giving us the extra $500 each year.
Right, there's two different things going on here. There's the deal with Nahant, and
Right.
then
There's
there's
deal with
There's
Rich.
this-
what
The
the
overall
salary is
salary.
for the building
Yes, we
commissioner.
have
Correct.
Do we have that?
But they're kind of
Did we ever see
intertwined.
that
They are, yeah.
Yeah, that was the,
Seen it. Yeah, we've seen it.
last week?
Yeah,
Last meeting,
Yeah.
yes.
right.
I thought we did, but I.
That was the meeting, I wasn't here.
Yes.
Yep.
So again,
We-
the motion
we
on the
have-
floor is that we approve this on the condition that Nahant is going to partner with us in that 18,000 and that piece closes, and if it doesn't come back, we'll circle back to this.
Right.
Right. So that's the motion.
second.
David, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Baldacci will start tomorrow morning?
Only if we get Nahant on board.
Yeah.
Okay, the update on the selection committee? Who's going to read that one? Where is that? Diane, do you have that?
It's in our packet.
in your packet.
Okay. I'm a new packet then.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The screening committee has reviewed proposals to hire a search firm to assist in the town administrator hiring process. We interviewed 2 firms last week, the Collins Center and Grow White Consulting, and are meeting Wednesday, tonight, at 6 o'clock, to vote on which firm to move forward with. Once we have contracted with the selected search firm, within 12 weeks, we anticipate bringing candidates forward to the select board for interviews. The chosen consultant will be well-versed in the position and what TAs do in general, and both the Collins Center and Grew White are very active in Massachusetts municipal markets. The chosen consultant will be available to meet with select board to discuss the Swampscott specific needs and requirements. From Heather Roman, the TA screening committee chair.
Does anybody know how many companies applied?
Big 6.
6 companies applied.
Oh, that's good.
And they narrowed it down to 2, or did they listen to all 6?
They narrowed it down to 2, and then they interviewed those 2. And Mary Ann sat in on the interviews if you have any questions.
Do we have any idea of why it got narrowed down to just the 6? To the 2?
I don't know how they narrowed it down, no. I think one of them was way outside what we could pay.
Okay. All right.
This is not a question for you, Marianne, but just in general, I know when we had spoken about, when the select board took on the topic of the town administrator search, we wanted some public engagement. And while I don't see that here, I'm hopeful that the TA search committee will be doing some sort of public engagement for what they feel like they would like to see in a town administrator also.
Well, I think we might want to have the committee chair present at the next meeting to kind of go over maybe some things, some questions like that, because I would like to know how they got from 6 to 2 and what the criteria was. And your point is a even better point, that we should really direct, I think, to them specifically, right? So I think Heather should appear here, right? So we can talk to her a little bit about that.
I think they're meeting right now.
Right, maybe our next meeting, I mean.
Right, so do you feel that we should be sending them information right now as a board as far as what you'd like to see as far as public outreach?
I mean, I felt like a survey or some sort of public engagement would be appropriate, but I'm also would like to hear what the consultants say, right? Because that's what we're hiring them for, their expertise, and they've likely hired town administrators in Massachusetts recently, and so they've been through this process more recently than we have, so I'm open to what their suggestion is, but I think we all commented that a public process, this should be a partially public process.
Right.
So, I want to understand what that looks like, and 12 weeks is great to bring candidates forward, so long as we are meeting those thoughts that we had initially started with, which was that we were going to have a fully robust process.
Right. I think it's important to communicate that we want to have a, dare I say the word, transparent, public process, right? And we want residents to be involved, right?
Right.
So I think we have to communicate that directly. We can't just assume it, right? Or think they know that that's our intention. So maybe if we could ask to have Heather here the next meeting, we can go over that stuff with her or ask her some questions.
Maybe with the consultant.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Everyone just, when we voted on this to begin with, there was a kind of, we were thinking it was going to come out of the finance committee.
Reserve.
Reserve. But they still needed to vote or something like that.
They did.
They did that night.
Okay.
Oh, they did vote that night, yeah, okay, joint meeting.
Okay,
And so the committee is authorized, they can go ahead, based on our votes, they can go ahead and actually contract
Yep,
with this firm?
I believe so.
well, the
They have
town is,
authority
they
to-
approve the financing, so the town signs the contract with the firm. Okay, are we all set with this one?
One other little, it's
All
not
right.
just us, right? In terms of they can come back and talk to us, but it's also, this is school committee, finance committee, different groups are just TAs for, not just for the select board, right? There's other representatives on that,
Yeah, there's 5 people. There's one from each,
Right.
yeah.
right?
And this came in on budget, correct?
Yes.
I think Collins Center was 13 and Grew White was 15 or 18, but it was obvious which firm would actually interact with you versus one that will not interact with you.
Right,
So I
Got
hope they choose
right.
the one that seemed obvious.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Now we'll move to discussion and possible vote to add handicap spots on Doherty Circle and the library. Kevin, are you covering that, or who's covering that?
He looks like he will. You ask him to.
I mean, I think, to be honest with you, it's pretty basic, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just a handicap parking space in front of, right in front of Doherty Circle.
Yes, so
And then-
so currently, there are no marked handicap spots on Burrell Street in
Right.
front of Doherty Circle. There are a handful, I believe there's 3 inside Doherty Circle itself, so putting one out front would be obvious for the residents that live with their front door on the Burrell Street section. The library does have one single handicap spot directly in front of the crosswalk at the main entrance. I don't think it would be out of the realm to add an additional handicap
On
spot.
the other side of the crosswalk?
Yes, and actually, and quite oftentimes it would, it opens it up, the parking a little bit more, and the line of sight for pedestrians crossing as well.
Okay.
So I would recommend it to have one spot added to each location.
Great. So can we have a motion on that?
Where did these requests come from?
The.
I believe it was brought up at the last meeting when we were here. I may stand corrected, but I think that when we were discussing parking and the other details regarding the Burrell Street, Doherty Circle, Pittman area, there was a question that may have been asked about coming back with some information for tonight's meeting, which is this as well as the other information that I provided regarding the other topic.
And under handicap, the library, the handicap parking in front of the library actually came up with disability 2 years ago. And it's still, so it's, that box hasn't been checked yet, so.
So Officer Reen, are we just, is the recommendation to just add one spot outside of Doherty Circle on Burrell, or add multiple spots?
Yes, for today's purpose, right now, we would start with one. I think that's an obvious place to go because there is parking on the inside of the complex. It does squeeze out a majority of other opportunities within the 233 Burrell Street area. So if we were able to put one handicap at the Burrell Street of Doherty Circle location,
Yep.
that would facilitate a need for it right now. It may present itself a few months from now, or a few years from now down the road, that depending on the occupants of that building, that we might need to add more.
Okay, so we can just, we can reevaluate as new information and as we see utilization.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so can we have a motion for the handicap parking?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, good. Discussion and possible vote to change parking on Elm Place, Pittman Road, Hillcrest Circle, Upland Road, Maple Street, Columbia Road, Burpee Terrace, Burpee Road, Burpee Street, Doherty Circle, to residential parking only, 24 hours per day, effective immediately. I would like to take Burrell Street out for this conversation, only because I think that we have a couple concerns with commercial. Did we all get an email on that?
How about Columbia?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Oh, go ahead.
I apologize, but because I do have information on that, and I think I was pretty specific last week's meeting. The residential changes to Burrell Street would only take place from Columbia Street to Essex Street.
Okay,
And I spoke with some business owners and residents prior to tonight and reassured them and confirmed that at no point in time did we ever suggest that there was going to be any adjustment to the parking from Railroad Ave east to the ocean. All of that parking on Burrell Street from Railroad Ave through Superior, through Boynton, through Lombard, through the Paradise Road, up to Rock, past the library, all of that is going to remain as is. There's no reason or indication that that needs to be adjusted because those signs are already implemented and in place. I did speak with Mr. Cresta about working with the town to update those signs. Some of them are not readable and do need to be improved, and that's just a matter of time on our end to make sure that we get those done in a timely manner. I don't see that there needs to be any concern of the business area. I just want to make sure that point was
Okay.
clear.
Are there any residents here that wanted to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
That's Mara.
Just your name and your address.
Hi, my name's Mara. Can you hear me?
Almost.
Ooh,
There you go.
American Idol. Mara Wright, 26 Elm Place. So we have a different situation because we have been inundated with the Berks Academy. And I just found out tonight that Elm Place is going to become a one-way. That's fine. But the parking issues are unbearable down there. Unbearable. My driveway's blocked, my front stairs are blocked. You can't, people park on the side of the building, and then they park on the fence side, and people have to back out, and it's a nightmare. And not that we could have private parking, but resident-only parking.
That's what we got here.
I don't,
Elm Place?
Elm Place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right.
So,
Sorry.
is this turning into, is Elm Place turning into a one-way?
That was what we discussed and presented at the last meeting, yes. Elm Place,
We have to vote on that.
Yeah, right.
we did bring that up. That was a suggested recommendation of Elm Place being a one-way entering from the Westcott side of Essex Street, traveling towards the Berks, exiting out the swamp.
Okay, so we would have to put that on our next agenda to discuss and vote on.
I mean, the street, they've already narrowed the street.
Yeah.
The writing's on the wall. It's already been,
Okay,
you know.
I'm good with it. I think
I'm
we're
just-
good with it.
I'm
I want to do it properly.
Right now, we're living a nightmare.
We know.
And that needs to be, to me, addressed immediately.
What's that, the
What else?
one-way or the?
No, the parking situation, the people parking, people leave their cars running, parked the wrong way. You know? And I really haven't called the police on this a lot. Now I've been out there taking pictures and making a couple people angry.
So how about this? Because if this passes here, this will become effective immediately.
Okay.
Then I'm sure the police will be happy to take your phone call. So I don't know if you have to call the emergency number, but
No.
Have-
You know what? I don't want to be a Karen, you know what I mean?
I think it's okay for right now, if we can just clean up that area. Because what's
Right.
happening is, people are saying, I don't want to call the police, and they're calling select board members after the car has driven away. But
Well,
if-
this is what happens when I call the police, then they're off doing more important things, and the car is gone.
Okay.
I
And-
mean, there's bottlenecks sometimes that are 10 minutes.
Have we reached out to the businesses and asked them to send some communication out to their membership and parents that they need to be more courteous of the neighborhoods?
Yes, I've personally been in there to a number of the businesses, and
Yeah.
I have no problem going back and reiterating our concerns and expressing how helpful it would be if they could work with us a little bit more as we finalize our problems with some new solutions.
Yeah, maybe once we finalize the parking and the one-way, we can sort of put together a little memo to them, and then they could just send that right out to, I know there's a listserv, I'm on it, so they could send it right out to their parents to say, there've been some changes, and like, we need to respect the neighbors, and these are what we need to be doing going forward, and we can sort of work with them to make sure that.
The other issue I have is like finding out that it's going to be a one-way. We were never told. I don't know if you have to tell.
Yeah, that hasn't been finalized.
Hasn't been, yeah.
Okay,
No.
okay, okay. And the fence, that needs to be absolutely no parking.
On your side?
Yeah, I'm not describing it right.
The vinyl one? The white vinyl fence?
The white vinyl fence on my neighbor's side. The parking right there is,
We could probably easily put up a sign that said, with no parking, hit a corner.
it needs to be, it probably needs to be,
Hashed out?
yeah. Then people don't care, telling you.
Okay, so why don't, can you go over and, how about if we can vote on this?
Yep.
And then can you follow up with Kevin on
follow-
tweaking that area?
Yeah, one of the things I just talked about with Kevin is, I thought this would probably happen after July 1st just because of the budget. My sign budget has been exhausted. To be in-
Be plenty of money next year.
Amy,
don't
is
worry.
there,
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question.
is there any
was
money in the
when-
budget? Is there
Right.
any money, is there any money in the budget that we'll end up doing a shuffle that will cover any signs?
I'd say $2,500 to $3,000 for sign, posted sign.
I'm just concerned about waiting.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
I just wanna make sure if we're
Yeah.
taking this vote that
That we
we're
have some-
enacting this
yes.
and putting
Right.
signage up ASAP.
Yes, agree.
And then, can we also get more police coverage down there? Only because I noticed,
Sorry, guys.
because I did receive a couple phone calls that there was some police coverage. I mean, maybe if we could ask the developer to pay for a detail or something like that. I mean, just at least for a few days until people get used to, they can't park.
Yep.
What,
I bet you would do it. You hired a detail officer yesterday.
yeah. You know, I think maybe they'd want to do that for another couple weeks.
I'd love to move along, but Officer Reed put together this whole memo, and there's a logic to the whole thing, right? And I want to make sure we have all the public comment, but, the first step here, the first recommendation is not, is actually different than changing the parking. And we talked about it last time. I don't know if we all feel like we exhausted that, we're giving up on that, we don't trust the Westcott will actually monitor and ensure that, but it is a term of their lease that they can only have one car.
Are you sure of
Yeah,
that?
that was in the documentation that we've seen. It is a term of their lease. They have to sign a separate addendum to their lease saying they can only have one car.
Right, but I guess, Doug, then, when they don't,
Right,
And-
who enforces that?
who enforces that? So
Sure.
then we have to go to the Westcott and ask them to
Hey, is this your car?
break the lease with them because they've had a breach of contract? I don't know so that's the problem. I agree with you, like, it's great that they did it, and I hope that that's really helpful. It's not just symbolic, it's actual, but at the same time, I don't think that they're gonna kick a resident out if they have two cars.
Right, but then the next step, recommendation, right, was this language about the large residential complexes and not giving resident parking stickers, right?
Correct. Yes.
So just trying to follow the order of your logic here.
No, and I appreciate that, thank you. And yes, and that is, one of the other things that came up at the last meeting was for us to research and look at other facilities in town
Yeah.
that would be in violation of this, and we did. And we look at places like Eagle Rock, Vantage Terrace, Crown Point, the Landing. They all have sufficient parking for the residents as well as
Visitors.
an abundance of extra parking for other vehicles within their property. And one of the things that we collaborated about with this language was knowing that they would be okay and trying to focus on protecting the area because of the density and where we are right now with this project.
Because this is a generalized rule. If you have this scenario, right, where you don't have enough parking or you're maxed out from the get-go,
That's correct.
This could be another development.
And this is for anything that we're trying to not look through the crystal ball, but if there's another project that we know that might be coming up, and we're also very aware of the fact of government housing. And we specifically were protective of that, knowing that Doherty Circle has provided government as well as other areas in town like Duncan Terrace. So we're just trying to come up with some solutions. We know, I mean, we're the enforcers of this, so we're just trying to present as much of a, to use your word, a logical approach to help mitigate anything going forward to benefit the people here that support us the most.
Because we want the lease to be there, we want this to be there too. The whole point is this is supposed to be transit-oriented housing, right? We
Right.
shouldn't need, the whole point of the people that are supposed to be engaging there is people that use transit and only have one car,
Right.
right? So if we actually try this first, we may then, if I'm following logic, there's a lot of these other things maybe we don't have to do right away.
And
Right away. We could do them later if there's still a problem, but.
I think everything is kind of flows with each other.
Okay.
And in the sense, one of the things that's specific is, if we were to focus on establishing our residential criteria, much like, I think you have a copy of that map. I tried to color code it for you to get a better understanding. Being able to implement that, as well as increasing the fine amount and making sure that we can hone in on a greater fine, I think that is the good place to start, because it establishes an immediate foundation and baseline. And yes, are things able to be adjusted and amended as we move forward? Absolutely. With something of this scale, I think it's only important to incorporate the people in the town, especially the people that live there and being most impacted, as well as utilizing our government body to bring it forth. I don't think it's a Lego effect where one works, one doesn't. I think if you put all of the pieces together, it creates a much more solid foundation, which justifies the total means and where we're trying to get to in one main action, I guess.
And even if we did this language with other things, the language still has some path to travel in terms of.
I mean, this is,
council and.
yes, this is by no means law. I mean, it's not stone, right? So it's what we came up with and proposed to you all.
Yeah.
And I think it's solid language that should be considered at its value. If it needs to be adjusted because council thinks that it would protect us in a different manner, obviously, we would follow that, but.
Do we know if this has to go town meeting?
No.
Nope, we checked with council, it's your purview.
God bless you.
Did you actually run the language by town council?
I did not know.
No.
I ran the authority by them
The authority,
after last
but
week.
not the language, yeah, okay.
So Doug, are you recommending, what is it you're recommending? Because I am still.
I'm recommending we run this language by town council. I do think that we should try to limit, especially in areas like this, adherence to the lease and to transit-oriented design, for sure. So I would like that language reviewed by town council to see whether or not we could support it if everyone else agrees that's worthwhile doing. But according to Officer Reed, then we need to do these other things as well. And we can do those tonight.
All right, so my number one issue here tonight is I want to make sure that we have resident parking in place right away. I don't know how other people feel.
I just said we'd do these other things too, yeah.
Other people besides Doug.
Well, I want to make sure that, I'm looking at Captain Cable's recommendation from April the 1st. It's in red. Just the neighbors are concerned that we'll make an uncontrolled free-for-all, pushing parking onto the streets. There was a request to have the select board direct them, Westcott, to number and assign spaces to alleviate this. It's not in the current agreement. I would like to make a recommendation to have the town administrator write a letter to to the Westcott if we haven't already done so, to have them number their spaces, so that way we can better control this, since this is a recommendation of the Swampscott Police Department.
We can do that. For some reason, it's my understanding that they were considering that. Was that the summary that we received after the meeting? I think Marzi had a communication with them after. So I think we should just
Looking for,
make that letter anyway,
Yep.
but,
Jenna Arsenal, ring a bell?
okay, Jenna,
Oh, yeah,
she's a
Jenna.
resident there.
She sent an email to us
Jenna?
for resident
She
comment.
has her hand up, that's why.
Can you unmute her?
I already did.
Jenna, you can unmute.
If you
Jenna, can you unmute yourself?
Here I am. I thought you guys had to control that. I'm sorry. Jenna Arsenal, 148 Essex Street, which is right at the corner of Hillcrest and Essex. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for addressing this, first of all, because it's been such a nightmare. Even before the Westcott was going up, we've had a problem over here with commuters parking. So it isn't just about the Westcott. That has just added so much more of a headache and a nuisance. I mean, the construction workers are rude. They park out there. There's trash everywhere. And I've sent countless photos to Officer Reen. He has so much patience, and I appreciate that. And, I think waiting to do this to July 1st just makes things so much worse for us, because the residents will start moving in. And just because the Westcott people say they're going to do something, people already don't obey, like, resident-only parking in other parts of town. I don't think that delaying this is going to do any favors for anybody over here. And it's been a nightmare. It really has. I have 3 young children. We have childcare that comes to the house. There's no place to park. My husband will get out of work. He's a laborer. He knows what it's like. He's had to walk 2 miles to a job site. He comes home, nowhere to park. And it's been every single day for a year and a half since that project. And even prior, it was commuters parking there for a whole weekend, parking there every day to go to work. 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. It's an absolute nightmare. And I just think that it should happen now. We've waited so long, and we've been complaining and trying, to be patient and wait for a resolution. That building's almost finished. There was another construction worker parked out there today. I've approached them nicely and said, hey, you're not really supposed to park here. There was an agreement with the Westcott. I've gotten yelled at. I've gotten called some profanity along this process, and I have 3 little kids, and I'm a hardworking person, a taxpayer. I really don't think that the vote should wait. I think that there's been plenty of information gathered. Everybody knows this is a problem, and there's resident parking on other parts of the town. Why should we have to wait? That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I feel like we have been a little bit scattered in this meeting, because we took things out of order, which is fine, but when we did take things out of order, did we increase the permit? Did we increase the fine last time? Did we increase that?
No, we have to increase it this time.
The $75 fine last.
Okay, so we're gonna do that. Is that on here?
Yes, it has its
Okay,
own
sorry.
line item.
See how confusing it is? I wasn't sure if it was part of the fees or
Nope,
if it's,
it's its
okay,
own line item.
great.
No, I think you're.
Because that's part of this whole process, as Doug said, like, it's not just one thing that's gonna fix this, it's gotta be a rainfall effect or waterfall effect. And so, I think after, I feel like I'm in agreement, I don't know how other people feel. Some pieces of this are not on the agenda, so we cannot approve them tonight, like creating a one-way on, also, I think there was another one, Elm Place one-way. Burpee Road, one way in the direction of Foster Road, becoming 2 ways at the intersection of Buena Vista.
Well, we can't do any of the one-ways
So we can't
tonight.
do any of the one-ways tonight, but,
We can certainly do the resident parking.
Yep,
Yeah.
so we could just stick to the agenda and do the resident parking?
there was, in line with this conversation, some additional, and the last point on Officer Reen's report is the potential for paid off-street parking for the MBTA lot at the high school. So can we talk at all about, like, paid street parking and?
That would fall under your fee and permit schedule. So it is on your agenda.
And it's in the package.
It's in the packet, so I think we could talk about it. So, obviously, we'd have to negotiate between the town and the school and the MBTA to do that. But in order to alleviate some of the MBTA parking, could be parking at the school, at least
In the summertime?
in the summertime, yeah.
I mean, we've had MBTA parking at the high school for, I think, the last 2 years. As there's been, as the
Because of the
station-
construction.
Because of the construction
Yeah.
of the Lynn commuter rail station. I don't have numbers, maybe Gino can help us out, with the number of commuters that did use the high school parking lot over the summer. And I know we had signage, I just don't recall there being heavy utilization.
Either do I. I don't know the exact number, but there weren't a lot.
But I do know that we are going to have many more residents in
Right.
Swampscott this year, this summer, and in future summers than we did in the last two. So I'd certainly be open to the idea of the paid off-street parking.
Yeah, maybe we could get some more
Interested in the
information about that. I know Eric Schneider from
Right.
He did.
FinCom also sent us an email regarding the potential for a revenue driver for paid parking. Should be something we're thinking about, especially considering the budget.
Yep.
Nothing
Right.
should be
The
left.
school would just have to make sure they were out by 7:30 a.m.
Well, his email was about
Is it about a different?
around the train
Around the train
station,
station.
not at the school, so sorry, I switched gears a little bit on you, but that is something we should be thinking about, not that we can implement that in today's conversation, but we should maybe figure out if we could do some analysis to figure out if that's helpful to us.
Yeah, I think I had sent an email on that as well, with some other communities, and I had spoken with Officer Reen about it. We even talked about potentially color coding the resident parking to neighborhoods. That way, if you live in a green neighborhood, you have a green sticker, and you can't be parking in the red neighborhood. That way, you're ensuring that your resident parking is exclusive
Your
to
neighborhood.
some parameter around your house.
Okay, so
Okay.
then can we have a motion?
Okay, motion to approve the item on the agenda. Do I have to read the whole thing?
Line item 5?
Line item 5, changing parking on Elm Place, Pittman Road, Hillcrest Circle, Upland Road, Maple Street, Columbia Road, Burpee Terrace, Burpee Road. Mary Ellen, did you want to take out Burl Street? Was that what you were talking
No,
about?
we're,
Let's clarify.
you know what, can we just
Burl
clarify Burl
A
Street?
portion of Burl Street, we'll say.
It would be Burrell Street from Columbia Street
To Essex.
west towards Essex Street.
Okay, like he said. Burl Street from Columbia Street west
Towards
towards
Essex?
Essex
And Doherty Circle.
and Doherty Circle. To residential parking only, 24 hours per day, effective immediately.
Can we
So-
enforce Doherty Circle?
I'm sorry?
Can we enforce Doherty Circle?
Absolutely, yeah, it's a public way.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay,
But then there's a couple takeaways, just to make sure, right? We have the kind of Eric Schneider recommendations we need to bring back, right? We have this language about large residential buildings,
Yes,
to confirm that.
right.
And then there's the other recommendations that are in Officer Reen's recommendation
The one-ways.
that we didn't cover, the one-ways. I think, is
We
it
should
all?
address it our next.
That parking here to corner and whatever else we didn't cover.
So I would think that the parking here to corner pieces can be approved in the motion we just made, right? If they're changed, because they're changed to parking, so those should be fine.
There are, there's specific, and I just have it because I've been out there for so much lately. These no here to corners, specifically on Burrell Street by Essex, those are signs that are already in place. It's more or less just me putting them documented on paper because I wanted to be as thorough as possible with what is in place at the moment and what they need or should be upon this approval.
But these are the ones on Pine Street.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear you. I apologize for that, sir.
That's the one that's in here. That
Those were the recommendations from residents regarding our community meeting on the 26th.
Right.
That had
I'm
come
just
up.
saying we didn't get to those because they weren't on the agenda, so we need to get to those next
So
time.
we can include those in
Right.
the follow-up.
If we need to vote on something like that, Katie's point is, so do we even need to vote on something like that, I suppose?
Do we need to vote on something like that?
On,
From parking here to
Specifically,
the
the
corner?
restricted
Like
parking
from
here to
the
corner on
corner?
Pine
Yeah.
Street, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Right,
You can check it out.
Yeah.
you know,
okay.
Yeah, if we need to vote or
What's the regulation? You can't park X amount of feet from an
10 feet?
intersection anyways, right?
That is correct. So it's, and specifically that area is rather difficult in the way that there's some curbing that's posted next to the parking lot of the MBTA lot, right at the end of Railroad Ave as Pine turns in, there's a section of curbing that already has restricted parking
Right.
on a telephone pole there. Then there's also the parking, 15-minute parking in front of the businesses on the opposite side, so it would be just that direct corner. It's kind of just a random piece of curbing that is utilized as parking. So to be able to take with the validity of what the residents were saying about their line of sight and their safety issues, I do agree with it, which is why we wanted to carry it forward. So if it's something that you and I can discuss and even go out there on foot and have a visualization of it,
I'd like that, yeah.
I think that might carry some water with it.
Okay.
Sorry, one last little thing.
Okay.
Public comment, there are signs up already?
Right.
Did-
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, so.
Is there any issue there? Did we get ahead of ourselves, or is
Yeah,
it
we did.
different, or, we did, okay. We're being proactive?
Very proactive, and it worked.
Ah, Okay.
We kept the construction vehicle, it was put up to keep the construction vehicles up there, and,
So are these signs we basically just approved, and you've already done?
Well,
no, those ones will come out, and we'll put the real ones in.
these are 24-hour a
Okay.
day signs. I think the
These
previous
ones are
signs
just-
were just for,
These are 6 AM to 10
They were
PM or
just-
something.
To keep the construction workers from
Are
parking.
they like temporary type of
Yeah.
signs?
Yeah, we put them in, so I didn't dig into the brand-new asphalt there, we put them in the tree plots, so they're just gonna come out really.
Gotcha, okay, great.
Okay. So on the next line item, discussion and possible vote to remove recreation parking on Columbia Street by Beach Ave and extending residential parking to Burl Street to Beach Ave on the residential side. I was thinking about I think we shouldn't address this tonight, only because I think the recreation parking is a little bit more complicated. And also, I did speak to a number of the residents on Columbia that are affected there, and they said that they didn't have an issue with the recreation parking. So I'm not sure how you folks want to deal with this.
I'm happy to table.
Table it?
Does this come from the police as well, though? Is this another piece from you? This is not from you.
Yes, that was also part of our proposal. It was a manner in which we had used that to remove the recreation on the residential side to stay with consistency. If we were going to be putting all residential parking and restrict it, we wanted to make it available for the residents of Columbia Street. There's a very, very small section, as explained on the wording there, of where the recreation parking starts on Columbia. There was no elimination of the recreation on the train station side, as well as no elimination of recreation parking on Beach Ave. It was a manner of thinking, like I said, just to maintain consistency with the residential as it stayed on the home side of Columbia Street. So it has no bearing on,
So there's recreation on the home side?
there's a very small section where there are 2 spots for recreation parking
Okay.
on the residential property side of Columbia Street.
Okay, I'd be good with taking that off. It's on the other side,
The
by the
opposite side,
train.
the
that-
opposite side, which is business-oriented,
Right,
and the train station side.
Right.
There's a recreation section that begins right at the, you just, and Ms.
There's
Phelan does have a
beautiful
packet that
visual
explains
For
it.
my request, thank you very much for making visuals much easier to understand, but he did.
I'm a visual learner myself, so
he
it
is-
helps.
It's very easy to see if you pull up the right map, which has Columbia Street. The red is the residential parking, and then there are a couple of green slivers of rec parking.
Yep.
And then there's a little sliver of black no parking around the corner of Essex Ave.
Yeah, it's right here.
So these pieces here, we're talking about the
And the
recreation.
reason why we're requesting the no parking on that corner is because it is a very difficult street to turn out of, with traffic flowing in both directions. no matter what time of day you're coming from, and especially with the tree that's right there, when it's in full bloom, you're pulling out blind. So if we can prevent a vehicle from blocking any line of sight, I just think it makes it safer for everybody, even if, kids are crossing and it's a volatile area.
Yep.
Well, we could vote on that, because we could vote on that.
And Kevin, is the line, does the Swampscott line go beyond Beach Ave, or is Beach Ave the?
Beach Ave is the last street in Swampscott, so the Swampscott line continues further about maybe, if I had to guess, 25 feet.
Oh, okay. So virtually that's the.
And there is continued posting down there as well. So it would all be symmetrical on that side of the street.
Thank you.
Okay, so then, would it be fair to say, have a motion to remove the recreational parking on Columbia by Beach, but should we say residential side? What's the wording?
As depicted on,
I think
Yes, as
the
depicted
picture
on-
speaks for itself.
it's the only recreational parking on that street, so
It's
there's
that-
no confusion.
And I blacked it out on purpose.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so Katie, you want to make
Yeah,
a motion on
so
that?
make a motion to remove recreational parking on Columbia Street by Beach Ave and extending residential parking on Burl Street to Beach Ave on the residential side.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right.
Just want to say thank you to Officer Reen for all the hard work here.
My pleasure.
Because I made more work by asking for visuals, and they were very helpful to me in understanding. You've been out there, so you probably have memorized what's a recreational, residential, or no parking spot, but appreciate all this work.
You're welcome, thank you.
And
Thank
all
you,
the
Officer
follow-up
Rena.
that you've done with the
They're gonna
residents.
be very
You've been answering
beneficial
emails
to the
and calls.
DPW workers that
So
installed.
thank you for that.
I'm happy to help. I'm
Beneficial.
glad to be able to help. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
appreciate you.
Good.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so next on our agenda is discussion and possible vote to increase the parking fines, $75 across the town. We have a motion, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving along. Now we have the Solid Waste Advisory Committee updates. Wayne, do you want to just have a microphone and sit down, or do you want to stand up there? Okay.
Great. All set? Thank you, Diane. Good evening, everyone. Wayne Spritz, Chair, Solid Waste Advisory Committee. With me, I have Alex Smolin and Kathy Mick, who are also on the committee. And the reason we come to you tonight is we haven't come in actually quite a while. And I know I only have 10 minutes, so.
There's a reason for that, don't you?
Yes, I understand.
Because that first year, you used up your time for the second
I
year.
understand,
So you're just back to your quota.
I understand, so we do have.
So be
some
careful here,
Short
Mr. Spritz.
slides, yes,
We appreciate you, Wayne.
thank you. Okay, the core reason we're here tonight is to discuss the fact that we have a new contract coming up for FY '27, and we really want to get ahead of this early. We have some unique opportunities to be able to take advantage of, and I know just because it was over 4 years ago at this point that and there's been transition clearly between people on the select board. We kind of wanted to go over just the very high level of how the contract works and the different costs and revenues associated with waste. Solid waste disposition in the town of Swampscott. So just to quickly first discuss the trends. Go to the next slide. Excuse me. As you can see here, this covers us from 2007 to the projected for 2025. Just looking at up to 2024, because the last bar is really just 2 months worth projected out, so it's not accurate really, but the blue lines are the municipal solid waste, otherwise known as trash,
The orange lines are recycling, and the green bars are a combination of black earth compost, mattresses, simple recycling. Trying to think what else we've missed. That's everything else that we know that we have in terms of disposition within the town that we can capture with data. And if you look at the gray line at the top, you can see that is the total, which you can see going down as well, which is an interesting kind of behavior analysis of that we are, in fact, we have less. We're bringing less, just material into the town and thus having to dispose of less. You can see that, and I think we discussed this before, that we have a goal of 30% reduction starting at the 2018 numbers. And we just heard a very interesting thing from Mass DEP that the average state reduction from 2018 to 2023 is only 4%. Swampscott's at 17%.
The
So
trash barrels.
What was that?
Trash barrels.
Yeah. Well, what it really does is it helps us moving forward, because what we're discovering, and the other reason why we're here tonight, is that to acknowledge the fact that rates are going up. And the reason that rates are going up, and you can click on.
Amy has it, so you can go.
Awesome, thank you. One back. There we go. We'll discuss kind of why that is in a moment, but we have a significant amount of landfills that will be closing this year alone, let alone going into by 2023. We were only scheduled to have one landfill left in the Commonwealth. So that means more and more and more, upwards of 40% of trash is actually being shipped out of the state at the moment. Let's talk about how the Republic Services contract is arranged. And there's three main components of it, right? The first component is the hauling and transportation aspect of it. It's a fixed fee, roughly just over $1 million at the moment. The other two parts are the tipping fees. That's effectively, it's an old term, you know, as you tip the truck back, that's weighed, and that's what the, you pay by cost, right? Or excuse me, we pay the cost by weight. And so currently, it's in the report, and by the way, the report that was sent to all of you, I assume is going out in the notes, in the minutes for the town. This is for general information. So we're currently paying $108 for trash and $85 a ton for recycling at the moment. So other costs that we incur are from Black Earth. We have public composting at the dog park, right across in the parking lot of the police station, and at the senior center as well. And the schools also have, in each of the three schools, have composting as well that's run with Max. We have mattress dispositions, we have middles and styrofoam once at the end of every month. We have the blue overage bags, and we have simple recycling. All of these have revenues and cost expenditures that all report back to the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. So before the Enterprise Fund, we really didn't have a way to track it. It went into general revenue, but now we can actually see line by line where the money comes and goes. Next slide. So what are the cost drivers? Major closure of landfills. The fact that we're exporting trash means that it costs more. It goes by rail, it goes by truck. It's an environmental burden as well. The recycling markets are also changing. So depending upon from one year to the next, what the cost of cardboard and plastic is, means the difference of how we might foresee the cost of recycling itself per ton. So as you can see, you know, one of the main drivers is also diversion, and that's really what the numbers that we've showed in the bar charts really is about, is diversion. What are the incentives? In the contract, what we'd be looking for is what is most, if not nearly all, that we're aware of. I would say more most. Other communities in the North Shore are doing commodity price sharing, which means that the base cost of the materials that we own as residents, that we put on our curbside, it has value, right? Right now, we pay someone to take that, to sort it, and all those machines, and then they sell it, they bale it, and they sell it out to the open market. the way that this has been kind of changing in the marketplace is that if the market price of recyclables goes above a certain threshold, the towns are able to share in that revenue. So it helps offset, on the good times, it helps offset some of the costs. This is one of the things we're going to be exploring. Food waste. Food waste is still 20 to 25% of all landfill waste. It is important, but it's expensive to compost. Composting, the cost just so you're kind of have a ballpark, and we talked about the trash is $108 a ton. Right now, with estimates with the public composting, we are around $213-ish per ton. And individual composting at the current rate at about 11 pounds per pickup per resident. If you do the quick math, right, it's about $115 per year. It's about $400 a ton. So that makes it really tricky to incentivize from a cost standpoint, just from a financial standpoint, because there's been a question, hey, can we offer free composting? I'm not saying that we can't, but it has to be integrated into the hauling contract, in my opinion, right? Because the efficiencies come with the person that goes around and picks it up and puts it, right? That's where 2/3 of our current cost is, and just the Republic contract, right? So just to keep that in the back of your mind, what the real number challenges are when it comes to that. The other piece of any type of recycling issues is glass. We've talked about this briefly before. What's really great, up until a couple of months ago, we had glass went to landfill. There was no secondary market for it. We just learned last month in the Mass Recycles conference that we went to, we talked with Republic directly, talked with the director of the recycling at Greenworks. He said that they are starting to actually offload the glass, where it's not costing them any money to dump it where it was. They're actually getting, even if it's like a couple of bucks a ton, they're able to offload it out of the system for free. It still costs them to sort it, right? It still costs them probably between 80 and 100 bucks to sort it. But any way that we can get it out of the curbside saves us more money. So we're looking into that. So, and I talked about the fact that we're far ahead of the state average. Can go to the next slide. One of the things that we know are changing, right now we have manual pickup. Almost all carriers are demanding going to automated pickup. And the reason is for safety. One of the most dangerous jobs laboring jobs is trash pickup. High incident of injuries, accidents, and so on. So you can go from 2 to 3 men or people in a route to one person. In particular, just the driver, the forks go in and they pick up and tip it back. Now, unfortunately, well, that will drive some additional changes. And one of those changes will be the fact that we need to have a standardized recycling cart. And one of the suggestions is that we want to go to the largest cart possible so that we don't have to have multiple carts, but also consider maybe going back to every other week if we provide a larger 96-gallon cart. Just something to consider. Something that might be able to save us money at the town side on the long run, again, because we could reduce the hauling and transportation costs, collect more at the same time, and be able to offload those. And then there was the investigate leasing additional 35-gallon containers. I know that's been feedback for a number of years now. It also becomes a consideration that if we do go all automated, we're not exactly sure how other communities are taking the extra overage bags and able to keep them outside and have them, if we're not doing manual anymore, if it's all automated. There's some serious considerations that we're going to have to be looking at. And then lastly, right now, trash and recycling are covered completely under the tax base. We would like to explore and have conversations about what it could potentially look like, and there's a lot of feedback that needs to come here, is whether or not to drop that into a line item like any other utility that the town provides. And whether or not that would allow à la carte pricing to individuals or residents that want more or less. I'm not saying it has to be that way. I'm just throwing that out there. We have some opportunities while we're reevaluating this contract. There are things to have conversation about. All right, next slide. So one of some of the feedback that we've received over the last year from folks in apartments and condos is that they do not have access to recycling. There is no general law in the Commonwealth that mandates commercial entities or housing entities, multifamily housing, has to have recycling. Towns have adopted, like our neighbor to the north in Salem actually has adopted a bylaw, or a city would be equivalent of a bylaw. An ordinance, thank you, to mandate recycling for multifamily. That's something that we don't feel like we have enough evidence to recommend at this point, but we are trying to gather information actively between different locations as to who has access and who doesn't have access. However, in a contract, there might be an opportunity we like to explore, which is aggregating a commercial services contract, such that because the commercial places, the commercial, not just businesses, but the condos and apartments, we don't offer them, the town doesn't offer them, those municipal services. They pay that separately. I'm not suggesting that we pay for them independently, but what I am suggesting is that we might be able to bring them into a contract that gives them favorable pricing because we've aggregated all of it together, right? So instead of having each of these individual commercial entities negotiating their own contracts, it may be possible that we bid out a master contract that individual commercial entities could
jump on,
could buy into if they want, or opt into if they so chose. So that would be taking advantages of efficiencies. Other investigative options to build into more services would be shredding days, combined composting options, still trying to find a home for rigid plastics, improve household waste, hazardous waste options. We have very limited options at the moment. Trying to collect cardboard for independent revenue as opposed to giving it and having to pay for it to be sorted out, to collect it separately. And then pre-negotiate residential bulk waste costs like the Bagster in with the new contract so that people, if they have like mass cleanouts, right, they can actually have that option to do. Next one. And so, this is the last slide. We've been invited to be a member of what's called the Best Practices Contracting Working Group. The DEP organizes it. They don't specifically sponsor it because it would be unfair necessarily, but what they do is they provide data for municipalities to talk with one another so that we would be entered almost into a closed room, if you will, virtually, a closed room to talk with other municipalities and learn about best practices for contracts. Learn what they're doing, find out what other towns are paying for, how much they're paying for, and really be able to take advantage of groupthink and collective information. Groupthink's not a great word, but the collective information to be able to make good, solid choices. That is going to be once per month. There will be different levels of opportunities for participation. We would need probably different folks at different times, but initially, definitely, the town administrator, the financial director, I assume, facilities director, liaisons from the Board of Health and and the Select Board, and various people, including folks from SWAC. In the end, what we are looking for is that for any service changes that may come, we are looking to go to the public directly for feedback, hold public hearings if it's felt that's necessary, if there's anything significant, both to educate as well as to get feedback to determine whether or not we don't want a situation again where things are so unpopular that people don't understand why there's a reason for them. I think that's really the driving key. And so we just wanted to let you know this is the things that we're looking to work on and hope that we can gain your support in doing so as we move forward into next year, and hope to keep the prices level because I know budgets are stressed. We're aware of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, quick, just timing. So if this contract is FY '27, when would we have to
have you done a timeline working backward to know when we'd have to put out an RFP, or?
Right.
Probably. Sounds like it's not too long from now.
That's why we're approaching it now. And that's why we're entering to the working group to develop an RFP this summer. So we'll find more, and I will be back here to give updates as we go.
Do we have any idea when contracts are due with other communities? Like, when is the contract up with Nahant?
Good question. For other like nearby regionals,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly for those communities, but I can find out. I have a master spreadsheet for that I can look at.
And as far as the time that we signed our contract, which was, I think, what, 3 years ago?
It was 2021, and so it was a
Oh.
5-year contract.
And then okay. From the time that we did that contract to now, what's the percentage increase? Do you know off the top of your head?
So it's been, for the first 2 years, it was the same base. So from starting in '23 to now, it's been a 2.5% increase year over year for the base hauling cost.
Right.
And it's gone up roughly 5%, $5 on 100. So roughly 5% on each of the trash as well as the recycling.
Do you have any idea what the anticipated increase will be?
Only from what I've heard from neighboring towns,
Mm-hmm.
and it frightens me. It truly does. I've seen prices of anywhere from $115 to $135 for recycling alone. And I'm still looking at various different numbers for trash. And the only reason I say that is that it depends how long they've been into a contract. A lot of people are coming off contract, so we don't have a lot of really good, solid numbers as to what's being offered out there. So, and of course, every town is a little bit different.
Right.
Everything from the distance to wherever they have to drop it off for the exchange site, right, or to the landfill, to the incinerator. So all these things they come into play when a contractor or vendor comes up with their final price.
So Wayne, if we're gonna keep our expenses essentially level, with this new contract, we'd essentially have to pull all of our glass out of our recycling stream to basically keep the expenses at current levels.
I can't speak exactly to that, but what I can give you is a major impact is in the cost sharing revenue aspect of it. I have seen other contracts where for every ton of glass, there's a chargeback of anywhere between like $60 and $85 a ton. Mm-hmm. That's how expensive it is to handle, unscramble the egg, as Johnny likes to say, right? Because it creates such a poor, when it gets mixed with all the other things, the paper and the glass, it actually reduces the value of that as well. Everyone would love to get glass out. Unfortunately, it's not as easy. However, I will tell you that I have contacted the sustainability director of Wholesome, which is the aggregate industries quarry, right? But they also have other installations around Massachusetts. There have been other programs where glass has been sent to be crushed and turned into, whether or not sand for concrete. There have been other places around the country where they've used it to, use it for beaches or for backfill. You can also be used for the DPW to use backfill as well if it's mixed in the right percentage. There's a Department of Transportation option that allows you to do that. So there are other uses for it. The less we have to move it around, the better. So we're working on it. I'm not saying we have a solution, but we're actively striving to do better.
So if we know that glass is a pressure point and we don't have, I'm trying to think of like if there's a temp solution, right? Like just sorting it out of sorting it here on the curb. Like, for example, I remember as a kid, you had one bin for
I do too.
paper and cans, and you had one bin for glass, and you sorted it on the curb. So is it just that then it just gets mixed when it gets picked up, or?
Yeah, so I've been asking if we could go, what we currently have is what's called single stream recycling. I'd love to go back to the old system. I really would. Unfortunately, all of the transportation, the trucks, have all been modified back to single stream.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, I have asked about, can we mix composting with trash? There has been some experimentation done with that, and one town, and there's challenges with all of this, right? Because it's all about the industrial logistics, right? They have a green bag for compost and a blue bag for trash. You get to mix it, it all gets mixed in together into the same trash truck, right? And then they sort it out later.
Oh.
If you have a place to sort it out and you're in the right place in the right time, in the right district, great. But if you don't have that, then so in other words, what this comes to is you have to have regional solutions. Thankfully, we are working and we have contacts with our neighbors and working actively. In fact, our municipal, our MAC, municipal area coordinator, thank you, just hosted a regional meeting. Jeff Vaughn was there with us as well. So we had like 25 people from the North Shore coming, talking just about all these different logistical issues. So the plan is to meet every couple of months now. So
What is the prospect? You were talking a little bit more about the cardboard. Because when I look around on recycling day, the amount of cardboard I see is astonishing.
it is.
So if we could, is the thought then that we would keep it here and then bring it, have a place to deposit it here, and then it would get
Right.
picked up by somebody who only handles cardboard, and that
So that you wouldn't see benefit necessarily at the individual residential level unless the resident wanted to drop it off at a single central point where it could be collected. I was thinking more in the lines of the schools and the municipalities,
okay.
right? Where they're already collecting cardboard as it is, but to be able to bale it separately. This is something we've kind of on and off talked about for the last couple of years. But between the transitions between the schools, now that we're really kind of set and located, it's a conversation we'd like to continue to have and to talk with Max more directly.
Would there be an option to work with Salem to try to utilize their facility? Don't they have a facility where you can go and drop cardboard and things of that nature? Is there any consideration or thought?
So you're talking about Greif?
Yeah, it's on, it's right near the police station.
Yeah, that closed.
It did.
Yeah, in fact, they used to have free shredding.
Yeah. that's
Yeah,
right.
it closed about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Jeez.
How about how about piggybacking on a contract that Salem or Lynn has in terms of scale? Do we know what their rates are?
We do. I don't have them off the top of my head, but we do. We know what those rates are. I have a master spreadsheet to look at.
Are they better? Are they better than us? 'Cause they're
Interestingly, no, they're actually higher, slightly higher in certain aspects.
They have the automated trucks.
And they have the automated trucks too. So, and I don't remember what year of contract that they're in. And that really
Lynn's in
has.
year one. Lynn's in year one.
Lynn's in year one, yeah. So,
But you could do an addendum if it was really, or something, potentially, if it was cheaper.
So there are communities like in the South Shore that have done regionalization projects where they've
Right.
created a regional trash district. That would really come down to cooperating. It's seriously something that we,
Do it in water and sewer, so.
yeah.
Something to look at.
And Wayne, just real quick, with the bigger 96-gallon barrels with tops, which is a huge piece because, as you've said over the years and as your committee has stated over the years, it's really, on days where it rains.
Right.
We're
Yes.
picking up trash and we're picking up recycling.
With waterlogged.
Those are added costs.
100%.
Any idea how much added cost? I don't know if you, I figured if there is somebody to ask, it would be.
It's an excellent question. There was a time, God, I wish I had brought that with me. I had actually looked up, it's like, how much water will cardboard absorb? And it is quite substantial. I think it was on somewhere between like 30-something, 40% by weight alone. Don't quote me on that. I have to look that back up. I might be wrong. But it was substantial. And so depending how wet and water sogged it is, you're paying for that extra weight to transport.
So there could be potential savings by having larger barrels.
There could be, if the assumption that every Tuesday on Farragut Road that it's raining, yeah, absolutely. But to speak to Danielle, to your point that you had about the blowing the blowing recyclables. I was just walking on Humphrey today and picked up a ton of plastic straws and
Yeah.
stuff that just, I don't know where they were blowing from.
That was brutal.
It was really kind of nasty. And it's one of the things that we have definitely brought up to our Director of Public Health and asked him to go out and talk to, if he can't talk to, message out that we would like closed containers for recycling,
Right.
not the open buckets.
Right.
It's just not okay,
No.
particularly down in sensitive environmental areas like the beach
Yep.
or by the wooded areas where it just blows.
I guess the best solution, maybe not best, but probably most proactive solution is just to say, this is now your recycling barrel. And if we go to either an automated recycling system, or
Right.
even if we don't go to an automated recycling system, we might think about if it is more cost effective for us to say, this is now the barrel that we're accepting, and it's now every other week, and that you have to use that, rather than those open blue bins that have
Right.
been around for decades. And then if we do that, if there can be some sort of pickup for those blue bins, because then you have to find something to do with all the.
Yes. Yes. That's our challenge with rigid plastics, which is
Right.
we're trying to find people that are, companies actually want them.
So let me ask you, when is your next meeting? Only because now that we are a little over the 10-minute line, we probably
It's
won't
our
be
fault.
seeing you for another 3 or 4 years. But when is your next meeting?
I don't think we had one scheduled. It's usually the third Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
Except for when it isn't.
Except for when it is. We've had a lot of changes.
So if there are any
Probably first week of May.
questions that we've left here, people can join the meeting,
Yeah.
make a call.
Thank you
But
very
I
much.
I have to, once again, thank you and Kathy and Alex and everybody on that committee. You guys just do incredible work, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
You all do, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move to our very, very patient town assessor. I hope you've enjoyed the meeting so far.
That's my bedtime.
That's what I was thinking. Do you have a microphone there?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go over?
Yeah, so the Board of Assessors is recommending a few changes. Article 8 would adjust the exemption amounts up to 100%. The board recommends adjusting that to 100%, which would actually double the exemption amounts. For example, like the veterans exemptions at $400, it would adjust.
Can you just give us, only because we're on TV and everybody in Swampscott's watching right now, just to give an update on like what that means, just some type of a,
Yes, so Article 8 would allow us to increase the exemption amounts, the statutory exemption amounts, or the exemption amounts that we've had through the COLA, up to 100%. The Board of Assessors is recommending increasing those to 100%. So in the case of a veteran's exemption, which currently the clause 22, the minimum one is at $400, that would increase that exemption amount to $800. And along with the seniors, the blind.
so it's an exemption of what? We've got to get it a little
Right,
bit
so the
basic.
exemption
Your real
amount.
estate taxes.
Yeah, the
Okay.
exemption amount is what we allow to exempt the taxpayer, depending what they qualify for.
Okay,
In the case of a person who's applying for the blind exemption, it's $500, I think it's $500. You would increase that to $1,000. The veteran at $400 would increase to $800. So all of these statutory exemptions that we have would be increased up to 100%, but the Board of Assessors is recommending increasing those all the way up to the maximum of 100%.
Do we have any idea what the revenue impact of that is?
Well, it'll come out of the overlay, and so right now, I think that the overlay amount would be sufficient enough to cover it. We might need to consider some increase in the overlay account probably down the road. So there's no way of knowing how many more people are going to qualify or what the actual impact is going to be, but like, some of these are designed, the Clause 41C and the Clause 17D are designed for those taxpayers that are really at the most need. And certainly by doubling those exemption amounts, it would be more beneficial to them.
Absolutely, no doubt about it.
So-
Love that part.
So Doug, for rough numbers, for the past few years, the Board of Assessors has voted the overlay at 200,000. Very rough estimate, we're estimating this could increase that overlay to 225,000.
Where does the overlay come from? Can you just
It does
describe
come
that?
from taxes.
Right.
So it is a reserve for abatements and exemptions, also known as the overlay. We don't see this impact being more than 250,000, so maximum $50,000 impact. If we do raise the overlay and it ends up getting raised too much, the next year we can set it lower, or the Board of Assessors could vote to turn that overlay back to the general fund.
So it's not enormous. For the individual, it's a big positive benefit. In total, it's not enormous, but in a budget that's very tight, this is another $25,000 or $50,000.
Yeah, and it was a lot of, the Board of Assessors and our assessor really wanted to, you know, as we're looking at this tax increase, make sure that our exemptions were as much as they could be, so everyone who does qualify is getting the highest exemption that is allowable.
I think the town has lagged behind for a long time.
Yeah. The last time we had an article at town meeting on this, it looks like it was 2006.
And this is the earliest that we can jump in. So the HERO Act was just passed recently.
Right.
And then
In
this
terms of the
is the
HERO
earliest
Act,
we
there are
can
two
jump in.
components to the HERO Act.
Okay.
What we are recommending is Clause 22I, which would allow us to put a COLA on that amount. 22J was to basically increase that up to 100%, but we're already doing that in Article 8. So Article 9 would allow us to just attach a COLA to that amount on an annual basis.
Okay.
There's no different group covered really under HERO. The vets there are the same vets.
Right, so if we weren't increasing the others, then the HERO Act would probably make sense to do Clause 22J. But if we're going to do the other, we're already doubling those, and then, so 22I would allow us to put the COLA on that on an annual basis.
And the intention with the wording in this was so that it would just automatically increase itself with the COLA instead of having to have someone remember to come back to town meeting each time those numbers change.
And Paul, is this is fully supported by you and fully supported by the Board of Assessors?
Yeah, the Board of Assessors, yes.
So unanimous
Yes.
vote? Okay. Thank you.
And has Jeffrey Blonder from the DAV, did he have any input on this, or like how will this?
This language covers what he had sent to us.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Article 10 is the tax deferral. That too, the Board of Assessors is looking to make some improvements to that. Part of that is to increase the income, qualifying income to that. Oh.
Could you just describe what a tax deferral means?
The tax deferral program allows the taxpayer to defer all or a portion of their taxes on an annual basis. Once they get into the program, there is a lien that's put on the property. And at some future date, when the property is sold or the estate is settled, then the town would kind of capture back the taxes that are due on that property. So right now, the qualifying income is significantly low. I believe it's at $40,000. And that's pretty tough. And as a matter of course, the tax deferral is a tough program to talk people into. It's a really good program, but because there's a lien on the property, a lot of people feel, oh, we don't want to do that. But in Article 9, what we want to do is increase the income, qualifying income, which we base off of the circuit breaker income for a single non-head of household income, which I believe in 2025 was around $72,000. And that's just qualifying on income only.
Okay, so you're recommending 72,000?
Yeah, well,
income.
it's based off the circuit breaker income, which changes annually.
Okay.
Based on the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
The second part to that is currently the interest rate is at 8%. The Board of Assessors is recommending to drop that to 4%. The town can drop that rate anywhere that they choose, even up to and including 0%. But right now, as of now, the Board of Assessors is recommending 4%.
So Paul, just to the interest rate aspect, that interest rate would be frozen at 4, or would it
Yes,
float based upon?
Yeah, so if town meeting voted to go to 4%, it can change at a later date through town meeting action.
Got it, okay. But as contemplated, it's fixed at 4% starting in fiscal year '26, and it can only be changed.
Correct.
Might it make sense, just as interest rates fluctuate, to have something, tying to the 5-year, the 5-year rate or the 10-year rate, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think this would be depending on probably Board of Assessors, Select Board, town meeting, is what they want to do moving forward. I mean, that could be revisited every year if you really, honestly, if you really wanted to. But I think, for me personally, the idea is to preserve people's ability to stay in their homes.
Right.
And, that interest rate can be a big difference. When I worked for the town of Westford, I recommended to my board 4%. My board overrode me, and we went to town meeting with 0%.
Whoa.
And then that's what they have done since then.
Okay.
Did that have any noticeable impact on people taking this up? I mean, how many people do this now here, or in general, you said people don't tend to actually use it?
Well, because it's lien on the property.
I understand.
So, yeah,
I understand.
and so that, sometimes people are kind of leery about that.
We currently have 3 to 4.
Yeah, we don't have a lot.
We currently only have 3 or 4 right now.
Really?
4.
Well, I don't think we advertise this
Right.
a whole lot, and we don't really push it.
Well, in the
And also
greater,
that the interest rate was, until you came, the information we had on the interest rate was 14%.
That's on that's on.
well, it's 8%, the statutory amount is 8%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you get into tax, if you're late in your taxes, or then you get into 14 to 16%. But the statutory amount for the tax deferral is 8%. My goal, moving forward, is to have an easier pamphlet put together that I've already talked to some of the staff, my staff, all of, with the staff in the office to moving forward. Something we've done in Westford is kind of like a really handy, at this point, 2-page of all the exemptions that are available, what the qualifying factors are, and something that probably we can work with Council on Aging as well, that that there's information out there that could be readily available to taxpayers. 'Cause
Right.
in the short time I've been here, and some of the people I've talked to, they're not even aware of a lot of the programs that are available. So
A lot of the
I
tax
hope to change that
programs that are
moving
available.
forward.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to be 72,000 and 4%.
Yeah, and so the income would be based on whatever the Department of Revenue determines through the circuit breaker.
Right.
For a single non-head of household income.
Okay.
Well, Paul, I'd just like to thank you very much for bringing these to the fore. I inquired actually with prior members of the Board of Assessors about some of these things. Not that I could have explained them as well as you did, but I knew there were more options for us, so I'm really glad.
Yeah, and for a number of reasons. I think the board has been really anxious to do some of these things. So I'm glad that bring these forward. Article 11 is in relation to personal property. It allows the town to increase the minimum assessment to $10,000. What that would in turn would reduce the number of actually taxable accounts from like 300 something down to 88. Those 300 accounts that are less than $10,000 only represents about $20,000 in revenue, which is actually absorbed into the higher accounts. So it's not like we're losing any money, it's just that the higher valued personal property accounts are just going to make up the difference. So I was kind of surprised to see how many accounts were there and what it really generated. So what happens, even from the tax collector's standpoint, I mean, we're chasing down very small accounts, and sometimes if they don't pay, we're spending a lot of money, trying to get them to pay. So this one is actually very proactive for the small businesses in town, especially the smaller accounts. That they still have to file a form of list annually, but at least that, you know, there's a little bit of benefit for them.
Okay.
And in Article 12 is something that I was involved with in the town of Westford when I was working. It's a home rule petition. It allows for an exemption for those under the age of 70 who are disabled. And to reach the disability qualifying factor is if you're considered disabled through the Social Security. And it's also based off the income and asset requirements that are similar to Clause 41C. So the intent here is to reach those folks that have a much lower income and assets and to help them kind of move forward. So the exemption amount will be the same as Clause 41C. So if we're doubling those amounts through town meeting action, that would follow here. So we did that in Westford. It did pass, but going through the legislative process could be a year to two. So it wouldn't take effect probably for another, 1 or 2 fiscal years.
And would this sit under the overlay as well?
Yes.
Okay. So the aggregate total.
Yeah, so how many people would qualify? We really don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough to say.
Sure.
But I think if these things are there and available, it may help some.
Okay.
All right.
After that, we won't have any more assessor things for another 20 years.
It's good recommendations.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? This is great. Thank you for staying, Paul.
A little memento.
Paul, I'm just wondering, and I'll also call the chair of the Board of Assessors, if you could have a public meeting for town meeting members and for the general public prior to town meeting, just to get people a little bit more familiar or up to date.
Yeah, if we could arrange that.
Okay. Or we can even, if we could even ask Mr. Dulett if he could do a question and answer on a video that we could put together.
Yeah, originally I had hoped to have something, but, with 15 hours a week, kind of slipped by. And it's like, oh, God, it's like town meeting's like, only a few weeks away. So it's kind of caught me by surprise as well. So with the time constraints, it's not exactly, things haven't quite worked out the way I had originally planned it. But yeah, if we can certainly
We'll figure that out.
and get something together, yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Certainly more than likely happy to do that.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good drive.
Okay, next we will move to the FY '25 third quarter financial update. Ms. Sorrow?
Is this critical for tonight? I mean, I don't know how much time we're going to need for the warrant. I know we have another meeting scheduled Monday morning, but the more we could get through now, the better.
I think the big question is, does anybody have any, this is pretty simple. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Or you could go right to questions. I don't know if Amy needs to go through every line item. I mean, I don't personally need you to go through every line item, but.
I tried to put everything that I thought would be helpful on the presentation. And I can post the presentation online if you want the public to have it also.
Yeah, did anybody have any questions?
I just had questions on the receipts not on track. Amy?
Yes.
You're talking about fees currently $200,000 below estimates, not projected to hit, and building permits currently $643,000 below estimates, not projected to realize. Are those a result of us not having a building commissioner and not being able to collect those fees in a timely manner?
I believe a lot of those are. I also think that we have just had less activity, so my assumption would have been if we had a full-time building inspector, we probably would have been able to realize more than half of what we are not realizing. But I think some of it is also just a drop-off in the building right now.
Sure. So, but bringing in a building commissioner
Yes.
will assist this and help to narrow that, close that gap.
Yes.
So to speak. Okay. That was it.
That's the only question?
That was it.
Katie, you good? You're good? Okay.
Beautiful.
Now we can go to the warrant. So we'll end up closing the warrant on Monday. It'll give our KP Law enough time to figure out any type of language.
So the version you have, I got at 5:30 after KP reviewed it. So this is the most recent draft that we have.
Okay. So if we start from the beginning for Article 1, just go from there. Approve bill, Article 2, approve bills prior fiscal year. Look at that, look how much lower they are.
Are these all of our bills from prior fiscal years?
What is that?
Didn't we did clean that up in December, right?
We hit it December, and then we always hit it at the annual. It's just, over the last couple of years, they've been high.
Yep.
So this is,
Okay, so can we recommend favorable action?
we generally don't do
We
anything.
typically don't vote until Finance Committee does. And so Finance Committee's meeting tomorrow night, and I will email the board with how they voted, so you can have that prepared for Monday.
However, we could,
There is nothing preventing you from recommending.
It's $1,300.
yeah, so I would say, why don't we take a motion for
Yeah, motion to recommend favorable action on Article 2.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so going to Article 3, amend and appropriate fiscal year 2025 operating budget. That one we've got to wait on with them, that's pretty big.
So just so you're aware, those are the individual employment contracts that were voted earlier in the year, as well as the stipend increase for the interim town administrator. That's all that I have in that article.
For 3? All right, so I don't think we really have to wait on them for this, then,
Well, this says that we already recommended.
because we
favorable action.
recommended it prior.
I think when KP was pulling it in, you did not in fact vote
Okay.
on this.
Okay.
Okay, so can we have a motion on this?
It is a net zero article,
But
so it's just transferring out of salary reserve.
we have to make, we do
Yep.
comment on it, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Amy's just saying because FinCom has commented on it, that since it's net zero, we should feel just as comfortable recommending this one as
Yeah.
we did the last one.
Got that.
Oh, okay.
So can we have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorable action on Article 3.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Article 4, is appropriation for fiscal 2026 operating budget.
Article 4 will be reporting at town meeting because, as everyone's aware, the budget typically evolves up until sometime the night of town meeting, right before.
Okay. Article 5, approve and transfer of free cash for utility. Okay, so this one is a little bit confusing for me. So my understanding was, when we approved this last year, we approved it for the elementary school and for, we had a section in there to cover the Hadley.
Hadley or Clark?
Hadley.
So we did 250,000 last year, so it was 200,000 to the school for the new elementary school and 50,000 to the town for the Hadley.
And the reason why this is what's really confusing me on this one. The reason why we did this was because because we didn't have the solar on top. So what would happen is, the school had a line item in the budget, and then in the event that wasn't enough, they were gonna tap in to the remaining amount.
Yes, we weren't going to have them structurally build in something that wasn't going to continue.
Okay.
which was the same thought with the Hadley. Hadley was only going to be on the town's books for a short period before it got turned over, and we didn't want to pull from other departments to be able to pay the utilities there.
Do we know how much is left?
In the 200?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, how much is left for our side, the 50, and then how much is left on the schools?
There is over 20,000 left for the town side. I know our facilities director did speak with the developer, and they turned off the utilities at one point at the Hadley because the costs were just exponential, and the developer said they were going to be gutting the HVAC anyway and the electrical, so they had no issues with it. And then the school, it appears that they have about 70,000 left at this time.
As we're talking about these warrant articles, is it possible that we can put the article, the warrant, on the screen so the
Oh, yeah.
members of the public can follow along with us, please?
So is it, are you
So
putting
why
the
would-
article on the screen?
I'm trying.
Oh, okay. I don't want to ask you a question if you're trying to do that at the same time.
I can do two things, it's fine.
So is it that we are just, sorry, I'll wait too, Doug was first.
So does that mean we've gone through 130,000 of the 200 for the schools? And is that through like 9 months?
Yes.
Or- So we're on track to use the vast majority of the 200.
And I looked back at the school's presentation from last year, and they had estimated that they might need 190,000 overage for it, so.
So the presentation last year was, how much was in their line item last year? It's like 180, 170?
They had, in their line item budget last year, 175,000.
Right. So it was 175, and then because of the solar, they were going to tap into, they're tapping into that. And now we're waiting on National Grid, and I know the schools had a problem getting National Grid on board, and I went and got Brendan Crichton involved, and Brendan went and pushed National Grid, and my understanding is that Max is satisfied with National Grid, that they're on board and they're working, but do we have any idea if we're going to be able to have that hooked up?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't gotten an update from him.
Okay, so they've gone through their 175 in their budget, and now they're tapping into the 200, and they're at about 130 in that, out of that 200?
When I looked today, it looked like they had spent 130. It doesn't look
Okay.
like they had the original 175 in there.
Okay, and we've used 30 of ours? Okay.
So it looks like they're going to need, unless the solar really comes online and full-fledged, but we're probably going to need to put up the 200. Hopefully, we would not use it all.
Yep.
But
In the agreement with the schools, they hold it in a separate line, so any of it that's not used gets turned back to the town to fall to free cash.
Right. Our agreement was they would go through their utility and then tap into that when they needed it. Yep.
So their utility line is 100% depleted, or it's in line by quarter?
It looks like they budgeted 0. So I didn't get a chance to talk to Charlotte, the
You
school
mean
yet.
for the next budget?
Yeah.
I'm talking about current. They've already depleted what they,
It looks like they budgeted 0 for FY '25.
Wait.
So and like I said, I haven't had a chance to talk to Charlotte yet.
Hasn't this come up with the schools? They've been asking about this, have they not, if we're funding this? 200,000. So have we had any conversations about it with them?
We have told them that it was in the draft warrant, and that.
But they have asked, it's an issue,
Yes.
it's an ongoing issue, right?
yeah, but now I'm more confused, Amy, with
Yeah.
what you just said. So it sounded like they had in their budget for FY '25, a minute ago, 175,000.
In the
Right.
budget presentation last year.
So they had it in their budget presentation, but you're saying they didn't actually fund it for FY '25, and we haven't asked them what the discrepancy is?
I just noticed it today.
So that doesn't really make sense to me. So considering they've been asking us repeatedly in the past couple of months when discussing their budget about this very issue. Why would we not have the conversation and say, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that, I mean, am I the only one that thinks that's odd? That doesn't
No, I
make
think
sense,
it's
right?
very odd if the school said they were gonna do something, if we don't think
Right.
they've done it, but they're asking for us to do it next year, that we come to the bottom of that before we decide whether we're gonna do it next year.
Right, but we wait till right now to ask.
Right, that seems,
Seems strange. Yeah. Okay.
so
Maybe we should get,
let's
have a
find out the data.
conversation
Right.
and ask the question and figure out, I mean, as we're opening, I just think we're looking at the warrant for town meeting, and this is just all of a sudden a relevation that's coming up, right?
Yes.
Doesn't make sense to me. This should have been a conversation we had. If there was a discrepancy, we had ample time to ask questions, and we're just now looking at this. So it's
It seems to me that either
confusing
way,
to
the
me.
bottom line is that either they're using this as their primary source of
Right.
paying their
That's what we
utility
have to
bills,
Right.
which sounds like maybe is happening, maybe. Or if it's the overage, one way or another,
It is still being
need a
used for,
$200,000.
Yeah.
it is still being used for the electric utilities at the elementary
Right.
school.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between if they were supposed to spend 175 out of their own pocket and then tap into this, and they had 0 out of their own pocket and they just tapped into this. So the usage of this is far greater because they didn't utilize their own funds yet. So then
Right.
we would be funding this less if they use less from it for an upcoming year, if they had utilized what their presentation said. So let's just get to the bottom of it and
Yeah.
figure it out. I'm
Right.
sure there's an explanation.
So I'm a little worried about only having this be 200,000,
Mhm.
because the other worry I have is shutting off any utilities at the Hadley. We have not signed a final ground lease, and I don't like to jump ahead of anything at any point, and I just want to make sure that that building is safe, so,
Our facilities director has confirmed that it is,
safe.
Yep.
Okay,
and this was checked with the fire department as well.
okay.
Why do you think this is not enough, though?
It's 200, the last one was 250.
No, it was,
And there's
two-
50
it was
for
50 for
town.
us, and we
50
don't,
for us. Yeah, but this only says 200.
I know, but we don't need,
Hadley's, well,
Hopefully.
It's not
okay,
operational.
hopefully we
yeah,
will
this is
not
just
need
for
the
Swamp, this is
50.
just for Swampscott Public Schools.
Right, this is not for the town.
Okay.
So last,
Well,
But-
it says here, it says for utility,
For pub.
right,
for
this is
pub-
for utility, so
So
we have here,
last,
for-
last year what happened.
last year was 250 for both.
Yeah, so last year what happened was we had this as a separate article, and then right before town meeting, Finance Committee decided to recommend it as part of the omnibus budget. So we ended up indefinitely postponing the article itself, but as part of the budget, they just, in the motion, increased 200,000 to, school line 68, don't quote me on that.
Yes.
And the facilities
right.
expense line of whatever by 50,000 via free cash. So that is still a possibility, and that's something that might be Finance Committee's recommendation tomorrow night.
Okay, so then maybe we should, I think
Yeah,
there's
let's move
enough
along.
unknowns
Yeah,
on this,
yeah.
we just move along.
Yeah, so this one, number 5, we should move along. I'm recommending number 6, we move along, which is Special Education Reserve Fund.
And move
I would
along.
think they're going to say yes, so that would be easy for us, but I don't want to say anything until the Finance Committee gives their, only because of how big it is. The approval of the, oh, go ahead.
Wait,
What have they utilized this year? All of it? None of it?
No.
Probably all of it?
They were, when they reported last, I think that they weren't sure if they were going to have to utilize a little bit more.
Right.
They were,
This current fiscal?
yeah, there
For
was,
the current
yeah.
fiscal year, I thought they said.
I thought they were gonna have a fair amount left over. Okay, so obviously we need facts.
I think there was something, there was a possibility that
We do.
they might need something.
Okay.
So we'll have more.
I guess
Okay, let's
move
get
along
some
makes sense.
more data then.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have none.
The approved free cash for the transitional audit. Oh, so this is, I asked to add this back in here just to talk about, we had talked about a transitional audit, as we bring in a new town administrator, and I think that we should look into it, but however, I think we should look at what kind of categories. We don't need to do a full audit. Sometimes those run at 6 figures, but there are just some pockets, and I just wanted to speak to a representative at DOR or even a representative in town, Jerry Perry, a past DOR.
Didn't we approve this?
No, we did.
We did.
We need to approve
approved-
the funding.
we didn't
We
obviously
didn't
have
have
the
the
right to
funding. We didn't touch the funding, so this would be to use free cash to pay for this.
And are we gonna have sufficient free cash to pay for this and everything else?
You will be below your threshold.
Can we double check the minutes on that? How did we vote for
I remember
something
talking
without
about
having funding to do it?
I thought that we voted to support going forward to it in theory.
To come on the warrant?
I don't know.
just-
No, I don't.
No, I
think
think
no,
we,
it wasn't to
I
come on
think
the
we'd have
warrant.
to go through the minute. I think we voted to support doing it, but I think we also needed to look into seeing what the costs were gonna be and what levels we would be doing it at. So we'd have to just double check that. My memory's a little tired.
Okay, so
Yeah,
so we can get some more information.
We'll double check on
from
this,
Jerry
okay?
Perry.
Information.
Yeah. All right. Authorize the increase for retiree, oh, go ahead.
I guess to Amy's point, we're gonna be below our threshold, but we don't really even know the two above what we actually will be funding, so
No.
maybe there's a
no
chance,
idea.
I don't know how close we are, but maybe there's a chance we're not.
Mhm.
So let's,
Okay. To authorize increased retirees' cost of living base, the COLA. The retirement board needs to come in and do a presentation. They're actually doing a presentation on the 21st
They're doing a presentation Monday evening.
with the finance committee.
Mhm.
So-
And then I believe they are scheduled to come to your May 7th meeting for the select board.
So,
How do we
How do we know they're coming
close
May
the
7th?
warrant? then?
Yeah,
We're putting it on,
yeah.
we're not voting on it then,
we
probably.
can vote on it a day.
Vote on it at a later time. So the delay in this was their actuary didn't come in until last week, so that was a pretty extensive delay, and that's why they're delayed. The last time the COLA was increased was, what year was it?
It was May 2021 annual town meeting.
Okay, and at that time, we had put in parameters that we would readdress it once we double-check the parameters again. So pretty much checking the boxes.
Mhm.
So we have checked those boxes, and now they need to come back and do another presentation and explain what they're looking for and whether or not it's good to go, or,
So
you
we
know,
don't know
what
what they're
people's are
looking
feeling.
for? We don't know what they're looking for?
I'm going to put this to 18 because that's the statutory maximum, and the motion can be amended the night of town meeting.
When we increased it the last time, we increased it from what, 13 to 14?
Yes.
13 to 14, and during the conversations with the retirement, they were discussing going from 14 to 16, and at the last meeting, they talked about going all the way up to 18. So it's in motion,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that we just have to have some really great education on what the impact is going to be and where the impact is going to be, because it doesn't mean that it's going to affect the budget in this year, next year, and the whole thing could be put at the back of it. So it's a very complicated
This article
process.
in no way impacts FY '26
Right.
for terms of the assessment.
Mhm. Okay. So we are punting that. Article 8.
So these are the ones the assessor just
Okay.
went through.
It was
So, I'm not, do people feel that we need to wait on the finance committee to support these, or what's your opinion on this one?
So the funding, it's all gonna just flow back down to the tax rate.
Well, it starts out of overlay, and the overlay, what is the overlay at right now? It's pretty high.
It's not actually that high. DOR gave us a warning last year to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it, because they said we were like.
On the line?
Yeah, we were like getting a little too narrow
What's the dollar amount on it?
371.
I just remember I wanted some of that. Okay,
We did distribute excess funds, I think, several years ago, I believe.
not sure. All right. So I think what we have to do there is we really have to see the long-term impact on that and how that's gonna hold.
Yeah.
But especially with the fact that we haven't increased these exemptions, we have people that are really struggling. You know, I can only speak for myself, that I'm super supportive of it, especially the fact that the state has put the HERO Act in. I don't know, so how do you folks feel? Want to wait on the Finance Committee, or do you want to just wait on more information?
How confident are you, talking with Paul or whatever, that this is, we're really talking about $25,000, $50,000 total with all these things?
We're reasonably confident, though, but like Paul said, you know, when we increase the exemption and, you know, reset the limits for where people become
You could have
available, it's
client-
kind of,
Right.
you know, it could bring more people to the table than we anticipated.
So
I do not see a scenario in which it doubles our overlay.
So do you want to, so Doug, it sounds like.
I
how about
want
if
to
we
do it,
get a
but I
little
just
bit-
don't want to be
let's get-
irresponsible about it.
Right, let's just get a little bit more information on it, okay? So the information that we want is, can we have a forecast? If we do double our numbers, what impact will that have on the overlay?
I can forecast it with what we have now and then kind of come up with a fudge factor for assuming more.
And also, how will the overlay replenish itself? Like, what, just some type of a, you know, a forecast, a 5-year span on what will happen with that account? Okay,
And then just back to Article 7, Amy, if the actuarial study is in, is that something that could be shared with the board as well?
Yep.
Please?
yeah, I think you could email that.
Because it seems to me if they're coming, they know they're coming May 7th, they know what the amount is going to be, and it would be nice to know.
For,
For number 7, did you not say they were coming May 7th, to our May 7th meeting?
Yes.
Right, so,
I don't think did they vote on what?
They did not.
They didn't vote on what they were asking, what they were going to ask for?
We did not. I'm on the retirement.
Right, did you vote?
We did not take a vote.
Right, so they don't, as of today, they don't know, they haven't said what they're asking for.
The actuary report was done for a 16,000 and 18,000 base.
Okay, so going to Article 10, tax deferral. I don't really see how that has a huge impact if it'll have an impact on cash flow, I'm gonna guess pretty minimal. We can wait for the Finance Committee on this, or I'm personally good with this. Katie?
I mean, I think I
Yeah.
wait.
I think we wait.
All right, personal property. Wait for FinCom.
I mean, this makes sense to me. I don't know that we'd need to wait on this one, but
Sorry, I just lost the,
11.
11. This is the personal property, it's pretty minimal, and then it just combines things.
I'm sorry, I thought we were just waiting on all the assessors, that I kind of
Okay.
flipped by them. but
All right, we could do that,
that's 'cause-
let's do that.
That
Okay,
brings us to
so-
13.
So we'll just go to 13 now.
I will say with the Finance Committee, as they went through the budget, they were not in support of zeroing out the community program lines from the general fund. They felt that it was leaving it too much to, if there aren't any donations, then in a year where the taxes are going up, we could potentially not have community programs. And the consensus was that it was short money. They did take a vote of the finance committee, and they did not vote to reduce those lines.
You know, it just seems like that's on 13.
Revolving funds?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Number 13.
Where?
But I don't see where,
I'm surprised because it just seems like that,
Recreation. It goes on 2 pages, which is why it.
right,
oh,
goes over. Mhm.
yeah, but what's getting zeroed out? I don't,
So
So you should.
this article was because there was discussion of zeroing out the community programming line in the general fund, which was about $22,000 to put community programming into the revolving fund via donations, not through program fees. So this is the article that would be needed to do that.
How many dollars, well, I don't think you're gonna know this answer, but how many dollars do we bring into the recreation account on non-programs?
We don't.
We don't bring any dollars when we have events?
We do.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
I actually sent, I actually sent, Mary Ellen, you had asked for that a while ago, all the community events.
Yeah.
And what money we brought in. I don't know if that was shared with anybody else on the board. But if you would like that information, I can give that to you, because I listed each community event and where the money comes from to, actually, I have copies with me, and where the money comes from. I have 4 copies that I can give you. And it kind of explains how I do these events and where the money comes from. So, I didn't need a copy for myself. That's a problem.
I haven't seen this.
Do you? Thanks.
I'm emailing it to you all.
Great. So,
Danielle, just before you get going, I'm still a little confused on the context here. So this is about the $300,000 in the recreation line of this?
That's the
That's the spending limit.
$22,000 in the rec line, right? That's community funding.
so community event budget is $7,500, and then the 4th of July is $10,000, and then I think lumped into that was money that was in the select board community event.
Right. So these are line items that were in the operating budget that technically fall under recreation, that we suggested moving into the revolving fund to reduce from the operating to, this is in an effort to bridge the gap of what we were looking at for cuts on the town side.
So we do get,
So there's 23,000 in operating budget money that's allocated to recreation right now. So the premise was to
So
move
we pulled
it.
out potentially,
Correct.
and we're
But-
hoping we're gonna find it somewhere else.
In the revolving account,
Got
the
it.
recreation revolving account, which has a limit of 300,000.
so the recreation revolving account is for programs, not community events.
Right.
So there is monies that go into that, particularly the summer concerts. I get sponsors for the summer concerts, so if we put that into the general fund, we wouldn't be able to take it out. So it goes into the rec revolving account to pay for the concerts. The same thing with, it's actually a separate account with the golf tournament. We get sponsors at the golf tournament and the golf tournament is used to help pay for 4th of July. If we don't have money in the community event budget from the town, that involves Pride, Juneteenth, which I don't get sponsors for. It also is the holiday festival. That would affect that also. And movie nights, potentially. That's all in that spreadsheet that I gave you.
This one here. But you could potentially. You might not have in the past got donations or sponsors, but that's not to say that
So-
that wouldn't change, right?
So what I need to say about that is you can only go to the well so many times, and I do. I have lists of people who give every single year to summer concerts, and another list of people who give for the 4th of July. We've tried selling T-shirts. We've tried asking people for donations from the public, and we don't get the amount that we need. Specifically 4th of July. 4th of July costs us $40,000. The town contributes $10,000. The rest of it I try to cobble together with the golf tournament.
Yep.
The golf tournament, Tedesco gives it to us for free every other year.
Right.
On the years that they give it to us for free, we probably make $22,000 on that, with sponsors, whole sponsors, and Eastern Bank is our dinner sponsor. On the years that we don't get it for free, which is this year, we make about $10,000 on the golf tournament. So the town has in its budget $10,000. Then I get $10,000 from Tedesco. Now we've got to come up with $20,000. I've been taking the Swamptoberfest money that I get, which was $5,000 this year, and throwing it into 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Recently with Bentwater gives us $5,000. We're going to throw that into the 4th of July. So that gives us another $10,000. Now we're still short $10,000. This year we were able to use other funds to try to bridge that gap, or else we don't have 4th of July this year.
Right, so I think the question, so this is where we come to a crossroads, because when I sat down with Amy and Gino and Cheryl, and we were actively going line by line to see what we could find, we're talking about bridging a gap with the school department, right? And this is the hard conversation. This is where it gets difficult, right? And, you know, we're talking about $40,000 on fireworks, or a teacher, or, you know, borrowing or using the revolving funds, or trying to have, you know, some of this stuff come out from Pride, Juneteenth, or, you know, an ESP at the middle school. So these are the types of questions. We could make the case that none of these line items should be touched, right? You could, every department head, and Danielle's completely valid because she's trying to protect her department, but at some point, someone has to be the adult in the room and say, we're going to try to focus on finding money wherever we can to try to bridge this gap. These are the hard conversations, so this is part of that. That's where this came
Gotcha.
from.
Yep.
That's kind of like
And so
the
it's really
mindset.
23,000.
23,000.
Theoretically, we're pulling out of the
Like
town budget.
22.7, I think. Yeah.
And hoping that somehow you'll do some magic, that through event sponsorships, fees, whatever,
Right.
we can throw that into
Right.
revolving fund and you'll be able to cover it.
Right. And the
That
thought
would be the
process too.
ideal scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention, this was vetted by Amy and Cheryl with Gino and Pam. Now, I don't think you're gonna get 4 more cognizant people looking at this budget, looking to see where we could find any possible spot, any possible line item, any possibility. So, I mean, we're doing the due diligence to see where we can find it. It's not easy conversation.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
I think it's really important when we make these cuts to any department that we have the conversation with the department head to see how that affects your department. I work really hard to get the $10,000 that I do for summer concerts. Now I gotta go out and try to find $20,000 for 4th of July. It's almost impossible for me to do that, and I try. No one told me I had to go try to get sponsors for the summer concerts, but I did.
Right.
And I do what I need to do, but it's not easy.
Oh,
And we
definitely.
live in a small town, and there's not that many places I can go to ask for money. And I'm constantly asking for money.
I know.
So it's not an easy thing to do. And I understand we're talking about saving a teacher or somebody. I get that, but we're about to ask this community just to pay more taxes, right?
We're doing that anyway,
I know.
regardless of the.
Okay, so we're about to
So, yeah,
do
we
that.
are.
So the
We are.
one thing that we can give our community is community. And these
Right,
things that-
I'm not suggesting that we don't. I'm actually then suggesting that your department works even harder, unfortunately. That's what I'm suggesting. And I know that's not easy to hear, but really or maybe it's looking at this, the way that you go about this differently and your funding sources differently to see where you can maximize revenue and do things maybe a little differently that would generate some type of revenue that we can.
So my answer to that is that program fees would go up.
And they might have to, like everything else is, we're looking at everything else going up. I don't think we're looking at fees going up everywhere right now.
I think the conversation with the board last time was that program fees were not going to supplement the community programs.
It's not fair to have program fees supplement community programs. It's not fair, you have people who have children, and you're putting them to a paddleboard program or whatever program, and the whole community is going to, benefit from increasing those fees, where I think that's a burden on a small group of people. And I do think that there's a way to get it out of the operating budget and get it over into here, but I definitely don't think it should be on the back of programs, because it's just.
So then what do you suggest, Mary Ellen?
Well,
What
I don't
is
want
your
to see
suggestion?
I don't want to see parents or whoever's taking a program paying more money to supplement full community fees. It belongs in the community budget. So would I look at this and say, how many dollars do I need? I have to go out and get $20,000 to help offset this. And right off the cuff, I would think, trying to go out and get sponsors for some of the different events. I don't understand why is it we only get 1 year at Tedesco? Have we had more conversations? I know Tedesco was very upset with us in our communication with them, and I think there is enough money in the budget, in the revolving account, to cover this for 1-2 years. I think, Amy, you'll agree with me, and then I think we could revisit it at that time. But
Well, then you would be changing it, that you would be using programming fees to pay for the.
But what you have what you have in that budget right now, you don't think you have enough in that budget, in that revolving account right now, that you could cover $30,000 to $40,000 of fees?
I was saying the conversation that the board was that you did not want programming fees to supplement the community programs.
Right, because the
balance. The only money.
You're saying the balance is in there. Well, no, not necessarily. The balance that's in there could be from the revenue of what's brought in from these different events.
No, those are in separate lines. So
these are on separate lines?
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned this before, but if there were an option, like if I was signing Sell Up for Paddleboard and it was $160 a week, and there was an option to stay round up to $170 for community events, that you would find a group of people who are able to do it and who would be glad to do that. I'm not saying on the backs of every single person, but I think that we have members of our community who would be able to do such a thing and would be able to help to ensure that we're having movie nights and things like that. Like, I don't want to see those things go away, and I would be, if I'm in a financial position, I would be happy to do that. I agree with Mary Ellen, not everybody's in that financial position, so to put it on them as an increased fee, but to ask for it.
Can I say something? I have. We tried doing that. Jackie and I came up with that last year and the year before, that we even offered people, if you donate to the 4th of July, donate $50, we'll give you a free T-shirt. If you donate to the summer concert series, we'll give you a free blanket. We got maybe 10 people. And it's just not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know how much we've grown and how much we've needed to go out and get sponsorships, especially for concerts, because there's no money in the budget for concerts. So we were able to do that and get we're having a concert every single week of this summer, which is great. We're going to have a movie night every Thursday night of this summer, which is also great. Those are, I can't say it enough, those are really, really important things for our community. When I was hired, I was asked to create community. And I'm just asking for a little bit from the town to help me do that. And I'm happy to go out. I mean, Swamptoberfest, I started that a few years ago with David, and now it's like $5,000 we get. I could have just thrown that in the rec revolving account, but my thought process was, this needs it, and this is money coming in from an event we had, so let's put it towards this event, and the same thing for Bentwater. If I found something else, if Derby Day becomes something big and we can charge people to go to it, which I doubt, but if we found something like that, that would go into that bucket too. But we just haven't seemed to find that, and I don't know, I just think that we need this. It's not a lot of money.
Okay,
What-
so,
What about the funds from the marijuana shops in town?
The what?
The community programming funds?
That doesn't exist.
Well,
The-
okay.
The community impact fee?
Okay, so the community impact fee, but, I mean, they do pay us money for parking,
For what?
for parking, right?
That gets passed through to the
24,000.
VFW.
Well, I understand what we
Oh.
do today. Today it
Yeah.
goes to the VFW. I understand that, but just asking the question.
It would just be general fund revenue. You wouldn't be able to dedicate that to a different source.
One of them, Terpene Jute, so we just took over the Garden Art Walk.
Yep.
That was another thing we took on because the community really wanted it, but it's going to cost us money to do it. Terpene Journey did donate to that, to help us with those costs.
So basically, as you do more,
Costs more.
you need more. You need, yeah, I mean, not every event is a Swamptoberfest or is a Bentwater Day at the beach.
Right.
Which make money, right?
Which are profitable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We tried using the 3rd of July as a, people pay to get in, and boy, were they mad. They did not want to pay to get into that event. They felt like it should have been a free event, and so now it's a free event. And, we have people come in for the 3rd of July for that event.
And we essentially try to break even for that event.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The details alone for the 3rd of July are over $10,000. Just the details.
okay.
What about maybe this is, maybe you could charge for the July 4th races? No, I'm just kidding.
We do charge, you're supposed to bring canned goods.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, but you can.
Oh, those, yeah, we do charge.
What about the 20,000, if we're not gonna spend it out of the utility fund for the Hadley?
That's this year's budget. This would be for next year's budget.
That would fall to free
Well, it's
cash.
Yeah.
fall to
Free
free
cash.
cash.
You don't use it.
Right.
Or get shuffled into Gino's sign.
So the challenge,
Okay, well, it's-
look,
it
the
all
challenge,
comes around,
the challenge that we have here is the finance committee you're saying the finance committee already voted no on this,
Yes.
so we would turn around and
Well,
have
they
another
didn't vote no on this article. They voted no on zeroing out those budget lines, which
Right.
means they would most likely not
Okay.
be supportive of this part of the
Even
article.
our budget? Because we have a
line item.
We have a line item. They
Yes.
don't want us to get rid
Nope.
of it
That's what they
either.
wouldn't take out.
They
No,
didn't,
well, it's a collection of line
it's
items.
4 different
correct?
lines.
It's
Yeah,
4
they did
different
not
lines.
zero out any of them.
Right.
And they said no to
Well,
all.
I'd love to hear what they suggest then, and where they think, if they want to vote no on that shouldn't come out. I'd love to hear their suggestions on how we're gonna get there. I really would.
All right.
So the second part of this article, which I believe would stay, is the public library revolving fund. This is for printing services at the library. Due to the cost of the ink in the machines, they are asking for an increase in the spending limit.
What is that, the 5,000?
Yeah, it was 3,500.
Okay.
They're looking to go to 5,000.
So I wouldn't think that the finance committee's, I think we could make a motion on that.
Well,
Oh, wait, but it's all
Yeah,
connected.
it's all one article.
yeah.
Oh, Jesus. All right, so how are you going to separate this out then?
Well, we can, it's a select board's warrant, so.
Well, we'll have to
it's-
just make
it's
an
the way you can
amendment,
do it. You
just
can
make an
either-
amendment to
Just
the
amend
article.
to remove the first.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can either separate it into 2 articles, or you can wait for tomorrow night to see if, what finance committee wants to do with the top, or you can just right now decide to eliminate the top half and just keep the bottom half.
Why don't we just amend? Does anybody, what other opinions do people have there?
Feels like six of one, half dozen of the other at this point.
So let's just amend.
Feels like,
Why don't you just, if you could just amend it and then add it into the warrant before they get it?
You want me to just delete out the top half?
Well, I personally don't see any way getting around it, but I don't, I think if Danielle, if you feel like we should be going back and putting more pressure on them,
No,
I don't have a solid.
I'd love to hear their recommendations. I would love to hear how they suggest and propose we fully fund the schools. I would love to hear it. So no, I don't think we need to push back. They want to go ahead and ixnay it, then I would love to hear what they suggest and what they recommend.
So on this article right here, do you have any recommendation on how you want to see this article addressed?
I do not, no.
Okay, so why don't we just eliminate the top, leave it at the bottom, and then we can,
Okay.
So we can make it, so do we want to make a motion to accept the increase in the 3,000 to 5,000 on the revolving account for
So
libraries?
moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
This carries. Okay, appropriation for Chapter 90 roadways improvements.
So this is the routine article that's there every year.
This is so routine. Do we need to wait for them on this?
Motion
Do not.
motion to recommend favorable action on
Second.
Article 14.
Okay, all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
All right. Amend and authorize appropriation of capital projects.
So this is what I
Where is
sent-
Patrick?
Well, this is the one that I had sent in the email with regards to the VFW after my discussion with our facilities director. So this
Over.
is reauthorizing two projects that were already previously authorized for borrowing for the purpose of 89 Borough Street design and construction. And that way, if there is funds left over after design, it's already there to segue for construction.
Okay. This sounds good. Can we have a motion for this?
so moved.
Second?
Is this, why would we not wait for finance committee on this?
Well, we're reaffirming.
We're only
reaffirming a vote we already,
Right.
an allocation we already took, right?
You're just reauthorizing.
We're reauthorizing the bonding. We can, if you
We
want.
can wait. Would you like to wait?
It just feels like that's the theme that we've been using, but,
Well, I think we're using that on things that we have to, this seems like it's a no-brainer, but if you want to wait on that.
Okay.
Do you want to wait, Doug?
Sure.
Okay. Appropriations or fiscal 2026 recommended capital projects.
The finance committee hasn't voted capital yet. They'll be doing that tomorrow.
So we wait.
I do have something to say on this. On the concern that I have is waiting on the windows. Where is the solar on here?
35.
Right, so the windows at the middle school on that back wall right there, they are so bad.
Well, the,
So the windows are on here, but
The windows
then
are on here.
administrator recommended is zero.
Right.
Right.
but
So
CIC
this was something
recommended-
that after the,
Huh?
this was not something the town administrator didn't recommend. It was Max had it later in a future year. And then when the
Talked about
concerns
this
were brought
last
up,
time.
Kids can freeze for another year.
he pulled
Yeah.
some of it
Well,
forward.
I thought, to be fair, I thought it had to do with the fact that if we were doing a greater renovation at the middle school,
Right.
that we would be
Sacrificing.
jeopardizing funding related to that renovation to do this great of a project so close to that funding.
Yes.
So this is all I'm asking, and I'll call Max tomorrow, whoever. Just the wall that's facing the bowl, which is in the worst condition possible. If there's any chance we could even just replace that wall, to take some funding to do that wall, and to skim it out of the solar panels, is there any way, I just want to revisit the conversation, that's all.
Well, we did. I think
Yeah,
Max
we
asked for $190,000 to do the
To a design for everything.
Right.
Right, so that's a design for everything, and then we have to then we're gonna have to wait even longer. I'm just trying to
He
see.
said the design would be able to give him the ability to come back at our December town meeting with that recommendation.
You come back to December town meeting,
Yeah.
that means we're gonna have to refigure some of these numbers here, because when we come to December, we're not gonna have any money on, for debt.
But the 190 is not it. You're not
190 is right
recommending
here.
190,
It's
right?
on 40, it's on line 46.
Yeah.
46.
Yeah, it's
But it's zero.
No.
But
that was-
CIC
CIC
recommended
recommended.
190.
Capital
Oh, I
improvement.
understand that.
Oh, yeah.
But Marion's on max, you said max.
Right.
Right.
So after the town administrator had made his recommendation, it goes to capital improvement.
I got
And that was
overruled.
when Max then pulled it forward.
But again, Max had this in the capital improvement plan for years to
Yeah.
come and not this particular year, and CIC moved it closer in time.
Yes.
Yes.
So then, Katie, would you feel comfortable that there was not some negative ramification of doing this piece then?
I think that Max said there will be, right? Yes, there will be a negative implication to pulling it closer in time.
Okay, so we need more, I
We
need
need
more
more-
clarity.
And I want you to
on
know that I
What the-
was-
What
I-
the ramification is, what the 190 is
You know
really
what's
for.
really disconcerting is that we talk about things and we constantly say we need more information. Why the heck don't we have the people here that we need the information from in advance of this meeting? It is a waste of time. And we do need this information. And we have a whole bunch of question marks all night about different things. And, it's just not an efficient use of time, and it's frustrating.
I agree with you, Dana.
Good
It really
recommendation.
is. If we know we have questions about capital and about the schools, why don't we request Max to be here? Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we being proactive so we can get these answers?
Right, Capital just finalized their vote this afternoon at 11 o'clock.
Yes.
So then we should know the answer to that. If they just finalize at 11 o'clock, someone should be able to tell me conclusively what will happen if we fund the middle school window replacement. What will happen, what's the trigger effect for a long-term middle school project? Like, we're just spinning our wheels here, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Can I interject? I'm sorry, this is Patrick. I am on the call.
All right,
Hi.
Patrick.
So I'm hearing your questions about the middle school windows. I think I have some of the answers, so I will speak up and
Lovely.
hopefully provide them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
So the middle school window project, if we pull that out of the larger middle school renovation and bring it out into FY26 and FY27, what we give up is MSBA support for that project. So if those windows are $2 million all in with design, and we had that lumped in with our middle school renovation project, we would get 40% of that funded by the state. Given the condition of the windows, it's the recommendation of the facilities director and the school department that they can't wait and that it needs to be taken care of sooner, even though we have the major renovation project scheduled for, I think, 2030 on the schedule. And when the MSBA looks at repair projects, such as a standalone windows project, if you apply for support from MSBA for a repair project and you have a major repair on the 10-year horizon for the same building, you jeopardize your funding for the larger project. They won't fund both. So to do the windows in 26 and 27 with design funded for FY26 and construction in FY27, we would have to support that cost locally through most likely a debt issue. But it's the opinion of the facilities director that it has to happen. So that's his recommendation. The Capital Improvement Committee agreed, and I think the recommendation of the Capital Improvement Committee is to fund $190,000 of design so that we can do construction in summer of 26. And that aligns with what Max originally proposed, which was a $2 million project scheduled at FY26. But really, he was just looking for the authorization because the project will take 2 years. You have to do design and then construction the following summer when the building's not occupied, excuse me. So I think what we have here is accomplishes the same thing that the school originally asked for. It addresses the immediate issue that I think has been talked about a lot with the condition of the school. And but to answer your question, the loss is that you don't get state support for this project in particular. But we could get it still for the later, much larger project.
So on the much larger, here's a little bit of, we're hearing, we need to have a lot more clarity on the much larger project, because I really need to understand is who is thinking that we're gonna do this much larger project in 2030, and how is that really gonna sit? How is that gonna sit with our finances? Because 2030 is just in a few years.
Right. So it's been on the plan. It's in the debt forecast. That finance committee has all of that. But we do have to have a lot more conversations about that, I think, as a community, as that gets closer, because you're looking at debt service for a project like that, even with the state support, that will rival what we just took on for the elementary school or exceed. So that's a much larger conversation. You'd be looking for a debt exclusion from the town at a ballot. So yes, that has to be talked about more, but that's, the windows are, recommended to be pulled forward for this warrant.
So in reality, 2030 is not a realistic expectation for a major renovation at that middle school. If you're lucky, 2035 or 2040 is really what you're talking about. So that just further necessitates the need for these windows.
Exactly.
You've needed for years, right? So, it's a no-brainer. But this 190 is solely just the planning of it. The design of it, they're not going to see new windows for 2 years, is what we're talking about.
Next summer, so not
Yeah,
this
they're going to
summer,
start next summer. So, you're still talking about, by allocating this 190 now means they're still, going to wait almost 2 years for windows. Is that fair to say, Patrick?
Yes, and in my conversations with Max, if we funded the whole $2 million in this warrant, it still wouldn't be done for 2 years.
Right.
Because you have to do design, and then the work can't be done when the building's occupied.
Right. So, well, I'm glad it's going to at least get started, so.
I just think not to say that the work doesn't have to get done, it's just when we make these decisions, we should be clear that, the sacrifice of the decision is $800,000 that we could have received in funding from MSBA to offset, the 60-40 split potentially on this project.
Right.
And if we really don't think we're going to do the middle school project, although it's on the horizon, to be done, if we're not going to be doing it for 10 years, because it's not likely to pass in town for 10 years, which is unfortunate but probably realistic, then why wouldn't we go to MSBA for funding for this project? Because it's not likely that we'll be touching these windows for 10 years.
Right.
Well, we could still have that conversation. We can put the 190
Yeah,
in.
right.
Sure.
Sure.
But we can still have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Put the 190 in.
Put the 190 in either way.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, so,
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
thank you, Patrick. All right, so moving on to Article 17, Community Preservation Act. Doug, you sent out the recommendations?
I did, but it's not in here.
It's going to be added to Appendix A. I think KP got it and started reviewing it, but it wasn't complete to add into the appendix yet.
Okay, so we can just, I think, was there anybody that wasn't in agreement with what Doug had sent out?
Well, the only thing is that I think you then sent something around a summary, or Diane did or whatever, and it still had the 2 appointees from the select board. In our conversation, it seemed like there was a desire to have one of those be from CIC.
Right.
And then just one left. So I don't know if,
I can make that edit.
okay. If that, is that the consensus of the group?
Yep.
That's my recollection.
Yep.
So just for the record, can you just go over what you had sent to us?
Say it out loud right now?
Yes.
Well, the required are what's in here: Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, and Board of Park Commissioners, which is our Open Space and Rec Committee. And then there would be one from Finance Committee, one from Affordable Housing Trust, and then there were going to be, then there will be one appointee from the Select Board, and there will be CIC.
Okay, so,
And 2-year terms,
Yep.
max
All
5 terms.
And you wanted staggered terms?
No?
No.
Okay, not staggered, okay.
I mean, if town council feels extremely strongly about that, I suppose that's fine, but it just doesn't seem necessary.
all right. So even though we don't have that here, but you did say it, do people feel comfortable voting on that?
I do.
Okay, so can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Katie, you okay with that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Article 18, Earth Removal Advisory Committee. This was just to change the language to remove one member.
From the planning board.
All right, so can I have a motion
And this is supported by the planning board, they're the ones who brought it
supported by
forward.
everybody?
So, motion to have favorable action on the article 18.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Article 19, well,
So-
Danielle just left.
So this is one that I think, Mary Ellen, you had forwarded from a resident?
John Picarello.
John Picarello.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And in my discussions with KP Law, they just said they weren't sure what the purpose was, and they wanted to make sure we were careful with the language, because they said, one, there's no penalty
Right.
for the enforcement. They said, do we just want the enforcement measure? But they said, we also might want to look at the language to make sure that we're being careful, because, you know, how are we delineating a group? Is there, 6 kids after school playing on the field, and are they going to be removed, and how is that being determined? So,
So my understanding is to limit the amount of leagues, like group playing, you have 2 teams playing, full teams playing, and using the field and not contributing back to the field. Whereas you can take a permit out, you could pull a permit, it's your time and your field. And I think the purpose of this is to, when the police come out to say, where's your permit? The police they have the authority to say, you can't be here without a permit. Or there's somebody here with a permit, they have to go on the permit. Right now, the police don't have that authority.
the way the language is now, KP is saying if there are 4 kids after school playing on this field, they would also be removed in the same way as those 2 leagues.
So that would be the discretion of the police then, right?
I feel like we should really flesh this out a little
Yeah,
bit
I
more,
think so.
because I feel like
This could turn into discriminatory.
Yeah, I feel like there's an open space element that we're totally missing here. The right to be able to be outdoors and use spaces. I understand that these are our spaces, that we pay to maintain them, but like, are you saying like residents are gonna be self-reporting by the looks of people on the field that they can't be there? Like, I don't wanna go down that road, and so I just think we need to have more conversations about this before we.
Okay,
go
so we'll
forward.
report back on this. We'll get John.
Yeah, we can have him show up. I just know that from using Upper Jackson and the track, there had been, there were large groups, teams that were coming in. They were parking illegally on Carson Terrace. They were leaving trash. They were, causing damage to the field, and we just want to make sure that.
To encourage them to pull a permit so that it's not to keep people from using fields, but to
Well, is there?
get
Well,
them.
according to
Yeah,
the issue,
only Swampscott people can use
Swampscott
this
School
field.
District's
Swampscott,
municipal
yeah.
recreation, I think if you have a few
And if
kids
there's a-
playing soccer or playing
Yeah,
football
that's-
or playing frisbee, that's one thing, but if you're having like a team with.
Well, we just have to make sure that this reflects that then.
Yeah.
Because right now.
Right now it
council's
says
saying
no-
it
Yeah,
doesn't
anybody,
reflect
No
that.
yeah,
person.
anybody
Does
should
not.
be able
No
to.
person,
if
group, or
there's-
organization.
And if there's no fee related to the permit, like you could just go get a permit for $0. Is that,
No, I think
No,
it
there's
will.
There is a
a
fee.
field use
There
permit.
is a
what's the
fee.
charge?
It's held by the school, I'd have to.
You're right, it's,
Okay.
AD does it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
But
different.
there are leagues that come and play at Phillips Park.
So it's
and all.
not,
Right, they pay more than
Outside
Swampscott
people,
residents.
right.
yeah, okay, all right. I
So
just,
we should probably
I
be
just wanna make
consistent
sure
with
that
all
the-
fields too, right, if we're
that the
talking
fees
about.
cover the, like, if we're here to prevent damage and make sure the fields are in good condition for the taxpayers to utilize, then we should make sure that the fees then, that the athletic director is charging
Right.
actually covers those.
Right.
So,
Right.
Part of the issue is, and I get a call from John every single Sunday afternoon, this group up there, is, my only issue is we've closed the field to Swampscott groups because of rain, because we know the field's damaged.
Right.
And there's others up there, and the police feel they don't have the right to remove them. There's no enforcement.
Right, well, there are no
We put-
guidelines, there
There's
is no nothing,
rules, no
so,
bylaw.
so,
yeah.
I mean, can there not be some signage posted at the fields to say the fields are closed due to inclement weather?
We could do that, and we also have a sign up that says field used by permit only,
Right,
to stop anybody from using.
but
the
at
field.
least if it says the field's I don't know.
I think we need to understand the process too, because I don't have any idea, how the AD reserves it, what her guidelines are, if she's got written rules, if she's telling people what the rules are, trash, this, that, the other. I mean, does anybody know? We probably should know all that before we try to implement
We
something like
definitely have a
this.
permit form that we worked on together,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
But whether it speaks to like different,
Like
rates for
take in,
different
take out for
groups.
trash, where you
It's definitely-
park.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
this
then
is a
that
different
that
group,
should
it's
give
different
the
rate for the
police the
trash.
necessary enforcement right there, right?
Chief is saying no.
See, well, then I want to hear from the chief,
Yeah.
right? I want to
He's saying
understand where the disconnect is,
without the
right?
bylaw, and he's
Yeah.
not going, for the same reason you said, he doesn't want to be discriminatory. He's not-
Sure,
There's
yeah.
no way I'm kicking these guys off the
Yeah.
field.
Right, I get it.
So now we're doing
Get
it?
Town meeting.
Town meetings?
I just say in fairness, that's the only thing I'm coming from, being in charge of the fields. We spend an awful lot of money on those fields.
Yeah,
Maintain
yeah.
them, and they get
Right.
beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
Because of, number one, overuse, and use when you shouldn't be on the field.
But are we going to lose revenue if we restrict it to just Swampscott too?
No.
Well, we
'cause
shouldn't,
we're not getting any
we shouldn't
revenue
restrict
right
it
now.
to
We don't,
Yeah.
so they don't get revenue from outside leagues now.
Right.
No, we get revenue from outside leagues, not,
Swamps.
Swamp-
Right, that's what I'm saying, if we restrict
Well,
it
we
to
do
just
get revenue
Swampscott.
from Swampscott leagues,
We
because
do.
you charge them all the user fee,
right, because,
any sport. And then, once in a while, we rent out the turf field, but never
Okay.
for a grass field.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
just think we need a little bit more data here.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Oh, boy.
All right, moving on.
Article 20.
Establish
to
the fall
establish
town
the fall
meeting?
town meeting, the,
I think we could,
That's
We're-
easy.
We're good.
we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Town meeting minimum member vote,
so last meeting, there was a discussion on whether this should be 5 or 10.
I don't even think we should have this article in here. And my opinion is if people don't want to be on town meeting, if their names come up, they're not going to show up, and it's going to be an empty seat. So, I do know that my neighbors who are now on a couple serious committees, they had a write-in, and I don't even think they had 4 names, and they got on, so, and they carried on. But, I don't know, I think that'll just flush out itself. I don't even want to see this.
You want to strike this?
That's just my opinion, I don't.
I would like to keep it. I think there is some value in having a minimum vote requirement. I don't know if that number is 10, maybe that number is 5. But I think there is some, I think there's some value and merit to having the conversation.
Does anybody else have an opinion?
I think,
I think 10 is too high. I think 5 seems more reasonable. And at the same time, if it's not on there, it's not, it's life or death to me. But, I do think it makes sense because you do have people getting in with 3, you 2 that didn't even want to be in. So it's like, what are you bothering for? You know what I mean? There should be some minimum.
Then are they even going?
I know, they're not, right.
And if they are
that's why
going,
people
we
aren't
have them
showing
there.
up.
maybe they show up and become engaged citizens.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's why,
But a lot of times, somebody just rates their neighbor and they say,
Yeah, that does happen.
Joe Jones.
That
Yeah.
does happen.
And then in
This is what
precinct,
happened to my husband. This
right,
is
but
why I
nobody's,
got back at town meeting,
but getting
'cause I
back
wrote
to it,
his
it's,
name in.
it's not that they're not,
With 2 votes.
they're not losing it, nobody's losing out.
Right.
That's why I think, that's why I think this is,
But, yeah, I think probably for every person who doesn't show, there's a
Yeah.
person who is like, okay, well, this is a good person to be on town meeting, and I wrote their name in, and now they show up, and now they're engaged, and
Yeah, yeah.
I don't, I don't,
Go
maybe
either
5
way,
is the
really.
number, and then we, you know.
Yeah, I could,
And the town clerk was supportive of 5. 10 was just the standard
random,
across other
yeah,
communities,
yeah.
but he
All right.
said
all right.
it's
so
the twos
let's
and
change
The
threes
question
where
is,
they're
do
having-
we go to 5 or nothing?
Let's
5.
move it to 5.
All right, 5, okay.
So
A
then,
motion?
motion to support the article as amended to 5.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, did we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Discharge to sanitary sewers.
So this one and the following one are from the Water Sewer Infrastructure Advisory Committee.
Can I just note, I have to say, of those last two we voted to support, they have this note saying that they're in rough draft and still
Yeah.
reviewed related legal issues.
Yeah.
So maybe can we
So maybe
just
we-
amend our votes, to just say,
Conditioned upon.
subject
Conditioned
Subject to
upon.
Approval by KP Law.
to.
You will be able to review the whole thing
Yeah,
and
okay.
amend your votes before
Right.
you close.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Prohibited discharge of sanitary sewers.
All right, so what is it, to comment here, we received additional information this afternoon.
What does that mean?
Who's
It's
saying
not been
that?
reviewed. This is town council saying that.
All right, so we can't even comment on this until, we really can't comment on this
22 and 23 is the same thing.
Monday.
Received additional info this
But
afternoon.
do we know what that information is?
Yeah, it'd be a great question.
I don't.
Maybe Liz does.
Right, I just forwarded to
Okay.
to Tom McEnany today.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so Monday?
so that has to wait till Monday.
Phew, all right, we're cruising.
He doesn't go.
So Mondays, I just want to say, Monday's meeting is at 8:30 in the morning, and I stated that I have a hard out at 9:30. So,
Okay,
You
well, we'll
running
go
the
quickly.
marathon or something?
no, I have to go to my day job, Doug. That pays my bills.
You don't have that off?
I wish I was running the marathon. No, I am not. I am a full-time mom and attorney, and then I do this on the side. So, just to say it. 'Cause
Okay.
there's a lot of things being deferred.
Okay, what are we looking at here for preservation of historically significant buildings?
Oh, boy, I'm probably supposed to
Did
do
they-
something about this.
What?
Do they come in with their new wording or no?
This,
This was the one that we boot, I think, let's boot this one out.
Because it was the
So
comment
it
asking for.
appears what
the
they
appendix-
got was
Making
not a
revised
red
version.
line
Not there.
version.
All right, so can we remove this and just put this into the fall? Doug?
No, I don't know, no, let's get the red
just
line
get the-
strike through
right.
for Monday. I mean, that, yeah.
All right,
So when you go to close the warrant, any article that is not complete or ready to go will have to be deleted
Removed.
off, so you don't have to do it.
okay,
Okay.
all right. Accessory dwelling? Please confirm the appendix number.
Yep, that was already confirmed, so
Okay,
25 is
approve.
good, and the
Second.
that's the one with the say, okay, so do we have a motion?
Danielle just motioned.
Second,
David seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Doug,
floodplain,
Doug has a discussion moment.
No, is this just to make it in concert with state law?
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
this was, Ted Dooley was here on this.
And the
Still
planning,
is.
the
Still
planning board
is.
already voted on
Board.
it.
Oh, he never left, okay. All right,
I'm
floodplain.
an eye on that one, just for the record.
Okay,
Just to clarify, Doug, all of it is to be in compliance with state law. We did exert our authority for local control to prohibit short-term rentals of ADUs for less than 30 consecutive days. So they can be rented, but it has to be 30 days or longer. And that's authorized under the governor's bill.
Okay, thank you.
okay, the floodplain, wetland protection, coastal overlay district, zoning, Article 26. Mr. Dooley you spoke on this at the last
At the
one?
last meeting.
Motion
Right.
to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Article 22nd, site plan, special permit zoning bylaw. Mr. Dooley spoke on this.
He did.
There's one minor change from when I last spoke to you. The final version approved by the board Monday night eliminated special permit requirements, or instituted special permit requirements for any new build in Swampscott, reduced the special permit requirement from 800 to an addition of 500 square feet, and also instituted a special permit requirement for any new build or construction in the flood area overlay district. So those were the last part. The new permit requirement in the flood area overlay district is an update from when I last spoke to you.
Okay.
So what's the rationale for all of that? That's all, seems like tighter control?
So for the new build and the additions, yes, it's to require any of the buildings that would need to, any of the applicants to come before the planning board for site plan review for any new construction in Swampscott or any addition of 500 gross square footage or larger, just to go through the standard site plan special permit criteria. The idea for the floodplain overlay district was to ensure that any of the construction in that zone would not only meet the additional building code requirements it would have to do by law through the building commissioner, but also had additional scrutiny from the planning board to ensure it met the site plan review criteria as well, given that area of town has additional scrutiny requirements that we have enacted through the first bylaw that we just discussed.
article we just-
The
yes.
firm map updates.
Article 26.
Yes.
So we don't have to vote on this tonight. I mean, if you want to take more time, it just has to be in the warrant, written the way we want it written.
And just to clarify, the planning board did vote unanimously to support all three of those articles.
So, I mean, I personally
A
feel
motion
like I could vote.
Yeah, I mean,
But do the rest of you feel like you could vote, or do you want to take
Sure.
some time?
Everyone else is doing it, I'll do it too.
don't be peer pressured.
Don't be peer
No,
pressured.
it's okay.
Stand your
I
ground.
mean, I trust the planning board, but it's just since there was a change, I feel like I should make sure I really digest that, but I'm sure it's fine.
Okay.
Motion
Trust you, Ted.
to have favorable action.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the citizens petition, we don't say anything on that.
I know we don't take favorable action or anything on that, but is there some data we can have about if we
Yes,
don't
I'm working with the
charge?
town clerk to put together how many public records requests we get, how many of them
many?
are, simple requests that get answered in a short time frame, which ones require legal review and all of that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I really want to see the dollar amounts that were spent on those.
I mean, I can give you the legal.
Hmm?
I said I can give you how much we've paid with legal so far, but.
Well, I know on one of
Legal's
them,
just a portion of it, right?
one of
It's like
them that was
also-
around the Board of Assessors was close to 20 hours of KP law.
It's legal, but it's also time
time.
from the clerk and also supplies, right? If like they're making copies or doing anything like that. I think everything goes electronically mostly nowadays, but,
Okay, review and discussion of the FY '26 proposed budget. Gino, you and Amy's,
I mean, not to sound,
Yeah, I was gonna put that off. I hope we could add that to an executive session we're gonna be having where it's a lot of personnel.
we have to find out.
If we can include.
I'm not sure, I'm not really sure, we'd have to find out.
Okay.
You'll have to call KP and just give them whatever your question is as to whether or not that falls in line with an executive session.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So, votes of the board, approval or consent. The only thing, my sheet doesn't even have the consent
Is there any consent?
on the back.
Did I miss it?
There is?
Oh, yeah, it's way back.
Uh,
No, it's not.
All right, so I didn't
On
get a
the
chance to
habit.
go over the minutes, so I just want to remove the minutes, put them for next time. And I don't think there was anything else in there other than the
Oh, it's
minutes,
at the
right?
end, it's right here.
Huh?
Yeah,
There's no,
Okay.
yeah, it's here.
okay.
Mary
All right,
Ellen
so
will pull it,
I just want to, like to put this on the next agenda. So that's the only thing that's in the consent is the,
Is the
Yep.
minute, it's two
Yep.
sets of minutes.
all right, so, select board time? My agenda stops.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
Did we post select board time on the agenda?
Well, it's
Okay, because it's
not-
not on,
it's
it's
not
not
on
on our
here.
agenda, so I just want to make sure.
We only got one page,
Uh-huh.
being very thrifty.
I'm on the website and it is on there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because it's
All
here.
right.
You give a tab.
So, select board time, Danielle?
God, what am I gonna say? I don't, honestly, it's been so long. I am curious to hear the budget update from Gino Cresta when we get there, be it in executive session or publicly. I would prefer it publicly, because I really am interested to see where we're at. and how exactly we are going to move forward. This board gave a very clear vote for nothing to support, to fully fund the school budget. And I want to know how we're going to get there. And I'd like an update on that.
Yep.
Not now. You don't have to do it right now.
Yep.
But I think that we have to be cognizant of where we are in the process, and we're behind. And we need to, I don't know what more support you can get than the support that was given by four members of this board. So, yeah, that's my prime concern. The budget is my prime concern. We have a lot of things going on, but there is nothing more pressing in my mind than that. So, and there are a lot of moving pieces, certainly, but we really need to, we need to come to a conclusion and wrap up this process. It's been a very long process, and I think it's been I think it's been good. It's a process we've never engaged in before. We have involved the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the School Committee. We've asked the School Committee many questions, many people have. They've given honest answers, and now it's up to us. Now it is up to us to make it happen. And I don't know what else we need to do or what other votes we need to take to get this moving in the direction it should be. And it's not going to be easy. And again, I've done a lot of the work. I've done a lot of research. I've dug in as much as I can, and I need everybody else to step up to the plate and do the same, right? And that goes for us, that goes for the Finance Committee, who are experts in their fields. If they're going to tell me that, no, we can't do this, this, and this, I certainly hope they're going to tell me what they can do. Because I'm real tired of hearing what people don't want to do and how easily they can say no in this town to certain things. It is about time we said yes to some things, right? And again, I want to thank the school committee and the school department for their transparency in this process, because I really do feel they have gone above and beyond. They have been asked questions over and over and over, and they have stated those answers honestly. So I respect that. I respect them for doing that. I'm trying to show them the courtesy they've been showing us for the past 3 months since the beginning of this process. Really, and it's time for someone to step up and lead this thing, because I really feel like we're like a ship without a harbor here, right? We're wavering, and we're finding a lot of really easy ways to say no, but nobody is really coming to the table with what we can do. Other than, and I want to thank Amy and Cheryl and, again, Gino and Pam for sitting down and really trying to get to the heart of it. And I understand department heads like Danielle, who's working her tail off to do what she needs to do for recreation. And again, there are going to be hard conversations, but we resoundingly made a decision last time we met, and so now we need to follow through. That's my take.
Doug?
I'm all set, thanks.
David?
Danielle said a lot of what I was going to say, so that's it for me.
Katie?
One thing I will say that we didn't get to say when John McLaughlin was still here is how great he is about acknowledging the summer help at the DPW. And when he posts on Facebook or, posts the beautiful pictures around town, he's always posting it with the folks who helped him do it. And he's not here, but hopefully he'll watch this, and I just want to acknowledge him for that.
He's definitely asleep right now.
You
Good
think?
for him.
He's a good man. He really
He's
is.
great. He's really great.
He is a really good man.
You walk into the DPW office and he's got a picture of him with all the summer help doing certain jobs over the years with the dates they were working at. He buys them lunch.
He's done so much,
Yeah.
so much. He's so deserving of that award, really.
He's humble too.
Yeah.
Want to show up tonight?
No.
Okay, and I'm good too, so
Motion
motion to adjourn, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.